Chapter 119. Murphy's serious attitude towards music was incomparable to that of ordinary singers. Even though she didn't have any work today, she still had the habit of coming to her studio early to practice her voice. After all, the studio had a soundproof wall, and practicing at home would disturb the neighbors. In the middle of her practice, Murphy went to the bathroom. On her way back, she suddenly heard a few weak calls, meow meow. A cat. Murphy followed the sound in confusion. Not long after, she saw a kitten squatting in the corner of some rotten cabinets and drawers that were waiting to be cleaned up, crying helplessly. It was a little kitten, about 1.5 months old. It was at the age where it could run and jump and was full of curiosity about the world. She just didn't know why it had run here. Murphy felt pity for it. She squatted down and gently lifted the little guy up. The little kitten was still very scared, but maybe it was too hungry, so its movements were a little slow and it couldn't resist. Murphy, who had liked cats since she was a child, recognized its breed at a glance. It had short hair, a round face, small ears, and big round eyes. Most importantly, its fur was as blue as ink. If this wasn't a British Shorthair, what else could it be? Meow meow. The little guy's voice was a little weak. After the little mouth opened, its pink little tongue licked involuntarily. Obviously, it was very, very hungry. Hey, what should I do? Murphy was a little anxious. She had milk powder in her office, but obviously, milk couldn't be fed to such a small kitten. Kittens were lactose intolerant, and drinking milk would cause diarrhea. Murphy held the little kitten in one hand and took out her phone from her bag with the other hand. She called Mo Shawan. Shawan, where are you? Downstairs? Great, don't come up first. Go to the pet shop and help me buy a bag of cat food for the kitten. Remember, it must be the kind that kittens eat. Yes, I picked up a kitten, and it's starving. What breed? Why are you still asking this at this time? Hurry up and buy it. It needs to be soaked until it's soft. The cat is starving. Murphy was a little anxious. However, while she was making the call, Mo Shawan had already arrived in the elevator. The signal was cut off and she appeared in front of Murphy. Sigh, you're really pissing me off. Murphy hugged the kitten in her arms and gently stroked the fine fur on the back of its head to calm it down. Look, it's starving to death. Hurry up and buy it for me. Mo Shawan smiled as she looked at the cat in Murphy's hands. She wasn't worried at all. She smiled and said, Sis, don't worry. I've seen your British Shorthair before. It belongs to Xiao AI from the planning department on the 3rd floor. Her big cat gave birth to a litter of kittens, and she brought them to us last month. Maybe it's the weekend and she has to work overtime, so she brought the kitten over to play. I saw Xiao AI this morning. Mo Shawan smiled and said, Sis, don't worry. Let's send it back to Xiao AI. Even if it's not Xiao AI's, Xiao AI must have cat food. However, when Murphy heard Mo Shawan say that the kitten might have a master, she wasn't very happy. Instead, she was a little disappointed. Then what are we waiting for? Let's hurry up and go. The kitten is starving. Murphy hugged the kitten and lowered her head to pet it. The British Shorthair was indeed Xiao AI's. She had forgotten to look after it because she had some work to do. Who knew that it would disappear when she looked up? She was anxiously looking for the kitten. Thank you, Sister Fei Fei. Thank you, Huan Huan. It actually ran to the 5th floor? It's getting more capable. Xiao AI's face was full of shock. After carrying the kitten, she put it in a small basket. There were a few British Shorthairs in the basket. They were all meowing and crying for food. Xiao AI quickly made cat food for the kittens. These kittens that were less than 2 months old could eat kitten food that was softened by boiling water, but they couldn't be fed milk. Mo Fei was playing with these kittens on the side reluctantly, especially the little British Shorthair she saved just now. That one looked the smallest, but it was quite brave. Not only did it not hide in fear like its brothers and sisters, but after the contact just now, it seemed to have a good impression of Murphy. It reached out its small paw and touched Murphy's hand. Murphy gently held it and squeezed it. This kind of kitten, the small meatball under its paw was soft and very comfortable to touch. Meow, meow. The British Shorthair's tender voice almost melted Murphy's heart. It was a pity that this was someone else's cat. Eventually, Mo Fei could only return to his office reluctantly. He had to be careful when petting a cat. In the end, he could only return to his office reluctantly. Mo Xiaowan skillfully turned on her computer and was ready to start checking and replying to the emails about the new cooperation negotiations. But as soon as she entered the mailbox, she saw a familiar name. Ah! Mo Xiaowan excitedly ran to the recording studio and shouted to Murphy, "Sister, come on, Mu Xiang sent an email." Mo Xiaowan was a little too excited, and Murphy scolded her, "How old are you? How can you get married if you get so excited?" Murphy was calm. The two returned to the office and looked at the email. Mu Xiang, as he had promised before, spent half a month preparing, and finally sent the 10 songs that he had prepared for Murphy. "It's really 10 songs," Murphy said with admiration. "Sister, this person is really amazing. He just took out 10 songs. Even Mo Fei felt that it was a bit strange. Although the 2 songs before were very good songs, after all, there were only 2 songs, so it was still understandable. But only half a month had passed, and Mu Xiang had taken out 10 songs in one go. Writing songs was not like making dumplings, where you just put the stuffing into the dumpling skin and then it was done. Even if the 10 songs were not of high quality, ordinary people would not be able to come up with so much inspiration in such a short time, right? Of course, Murphy was just shocked and confused. She still asked Mo Xiaowan to print out the music score and lyrics, so that she could think about it carefully. According to Murphy's habit, she would not listen to demos. She wondered if Yang Yi would vomit blood if he knew about this. He had spent a lot of effort on this. The 10 songs were printed out in a thick stack of paper. Murphy could not read so much at once, so Mo Xiaowan flipped through it with interest. "Sister, this song is a little interesting," Mo Xiaowan said with a smile. "Look, before you said that he was just an ordinary fan. Look at the lyrics, he has spoken out his heart." Murphy took it and looked at it doubtfully. She read the song title, "In My Voice?" Mo Xiaowan bumped her cousin's shoulder and joked, "It's not bad to have a fan who can write songs like this, right? He admires you from the bottom of his heart, so the songs he writes are full of affection." But Mo Xiaowan's words made Murphy frown deeply. Chapter 120. Murphy did not know how to sing In My Voice, but from the lyrics, it was indeed a very artistic song, a song about encounters and love. The lyrics were very beautiful, so beautiful that even though Mo Xiaowan's words had a knot in her heart, Murphy could not help but look at the music score. "So me li me suo." Murphy tried to feel the melody of the song, without any precaution. Mo Xiaowan looked at her cousin with some admiration. To her, who was only at the 5th rank in the battle, just looking at the music score made her dizzy. Murphy simply had the most magical skill in the world. "I didn't have any misgivings. You just appeared, in my world." Murphy sang this opening a little hoarse, maybe because she had not grasped the right singing voice? However, with Mo Fei's voice, even if she sang it, it would not sound bad. Very quickly, Murphy sang to the high notes. "You exist, deep in my mind, in my dreams, in my heart, in my voice." These lyrics were like a confession. Murphy's brows furrowed deeper and deeper, feeling especially awkward. Indeed, when Yang Yi was choosing a song for Murphy, he thought of this original song by Chu Wanting in his previous life, and inexplicably felt that the mood created by the lyrics was very suitable for his and Murphy's story. Although it could not be considered a confession, Yang Yi added it as a coincidence, wanting to use a special way to tell Murphy his feelings. Without any precaution, you just appeared in my world, bringing me a pleasant surprise, unable to control myself. Wasn't this referring to the original part of the maple forest? Murphy barged into the original part of Yang Yi's world, and that part was a pleasant surprise, unable to control himself. And just like the song, "But you just had to be like this. Without me noticing, you quietly disappeared." There was no news from my world. All that was left were memories. In the past few years, Murphy suddenly disappeared without a trace, leaving only a vague memory in his mind. Later, when she reunited with Shi, their worlds intersected again, but this time, it was Yang Yi's turn. Yang Yi's understanding of Murphy actually had a process of change. At first, it came from the original body's memory, which was full of fetters and misunderstandings. After that, every short contact, Yang Yi listened to each of her songs, and gradually, Yang Yi had a better understanding of Murphy. Your existence, deep in my mind. In the end, in my voice. Murphy, like her singing, gradually took root in Yang Yi's mind. The scenes in the past few months were like a roller coaster. The two of them quarreled and bickered, but in the end, it seemed that only sweetness was left. But we still felt each other's eyes, a heartbeat, an unexpected happiness, as if it was a dream, destined by fate. Yang Yi liked the last sentence more. The world is so big, why did we meet? Is it fate? Is it God's will? Maybe it was fate that made them have such deep fetters, or maybe it was the fetters that gave Yang Yi the opportunity to understand and like such a sincere woman who hid herself in indifference, but in fact, had a passionate heart. It could be said that this was a song that Yang Yi used to express his feelings. It was not a confession, but it was better than a confession. However, Yang Yi forgot that he was using a SMUF account. The identity of the SMUF account was one of Murphy's fans, not him. From this song, the information that Murphy got was distorted. It was as if one of her fans, because of an unreal encounter, or because he bought one of her records in the music store, fell in love with her because of her singing, so he confessed to her affectionately. Mo Fei was still touched, but what Mo Fei felt was even more uncomfortable. That's not right. Murphy suddenly muttered to herself. Mo Shaowan scratched the itch on her back in a daze, and said, "What's wrong? Is it because you're there, singing too high?" Murphy shook her head, her pretty face looked a little serious, and said, "I don't think I should use Mu Ziyang's song." "Why?" Mo Shaowan asked in surprise. "Is the song he wrote not good? The quality of this batch is bad?" Murphy shook her head and said, "No, it's not bad, but it's too good." She looked at a few songs just now, and almost all of them were good. The lyrics were like poems, each word was meaningful, and the emotions expressed were very delicate. The score was not bad, and there was no need to hum it out. Murphy's brain seemed to have a piano, and looking at the notes, the corresponding melody echoed in her mind. Although it was not sung together with the lyrics, the beautiful melody, coupled with the beautiful lyrics, how could such a song be bad? Or not to mention other things, Murphy felt that this song, In My Voice, was not worse than the First Dream and Love Me Don't Go that Mu Ziyang wrote for her. One must know that this kind of song, if used as the title song, no one would question it, but now it was all given to her? Murphy thought of the deep feelings that the other party expressed for her, and felt that it was hard to accept. But Mo Shaowan could not understand. She asked anxiously, "Sis, why are you being silly? It's not easy to find a good songwriter to write a song for you. Why are you being so picky?" "I'm not being picky." Murphy frowned and said, "It's him. How should I put it? I already have a child, and I can't give him what he wants." "That's not right." Murphy was a little embarrassed, but Mo Shaowan still understood. She said generously, "So what? There are many fans who are infatuated with you, and you can't be in a relationship with them. I know that you like that young guy in your heart now." Mo Shaowan looked at Murphy, who was hesitant to say something, but did not refute. She giggled and said, "But so what? You can just treat that Mu Ziyang as an ordinary admirer of yours, right? Isn't it normal for an outstanding woman like you to have a lot of admirers? In the worst-case scenario, you can accept their gifts but keep your distance from them, right?" Mo Shaowan pulled Murphy's arm and persuaded her, "Anyway, we're using Mu Ziyang's songs, and it's not like we're not paying him. If you feel that you're mistreating him, then sign the best contract with him and give him the best share of the profits, right? Sis, good songs are hard to come by." Mo Shaowan was like a little devil with a fork, persuading Murphy. However, after listening for a long time, Murphy shook her head firmly and said, No. I won't do that, I won't feel good about it. And if Yang E, or Shishi finds out, if Shishi finds out that her mom is such a person, she'll be disappointed. Mo Shaowan was a little disappointed. Aya, my sister, why are you so stubborn? Won't you tell them? If you don't tell them, they won't know. No. Murphy was still as stubborn as a bull. Chapter 121. Murphy was so stubborn. Once she decided on something, no one could change her mind. Mo Shaowan could only watch helplessly as Mo Fei sat in front of her computer, and then began to click on the email reply and type on the keyboard. Murphy told Mu Xiang in the email that although she was grateful for the song that Mu Xiang wrote for her, she was sorry that she couldn't accept it. Because I already have someone I like. She didn't want to give him the wrong impression and waste his time. Sis, you can't write like that. It's too straightforward. Mo Shaowan stopped Murphy from sending the email. Murphy looked at Mo Shaowan in confusion and asked, "What's wrong?" "You can't tell him that you already have someone you like," Mo Shaowan said with a headache. "What if he gets angry and leaks this email to the media?" Murphy frowned. If it was the Murphy who had just debuted, she would definitely say, "Impossible, how can a person be so despicable?" But now, Murphy still knew how sinister human nature could be. "Then how do you think I should write it?" Murphy gave up her position and left the professional matters to the professionals. "Just say that it's because of personal reasons, so you can't blah blah blah." Mo Shaowan skillfully revised the email. Not only this sentence, but the entire email was revised by her. The wording was more appropriate and the tone was more tactful. Of course, the meaning was still the same. Mo Shaowan finally looked at Murphy and asked, "Sis, do you really want to send it? You have to think about it carefully. After you send it, you might have to say goodbye to these good songs. And your new album is also going to be ruined. Send it." Murphy was very firm and said without wavering, "Okay." Mo Shaowan clicked the send button. Seeing the email sent, Murphy breathed a sigh of relief. She felt that she had put down some of the things that she had been carrying. However, after returning to the sofa and sitting down, Murphy looked at the messy music scores on the coffee table. She collected them, folded them carefully, and put them in a folder. Perhaps she would use them to practice in the future, but these songs no longer belonged to her. Murphy's delicate eyes revealed a trace of sadness. "You can't bear to?" Mo Shaowan went up and massaged her cousin's shoulders. She smiled and said, "You were so determined just now." Murphy rolled her eyes at her and said snappily, "What's there to be reluctant about? Am I the kind of person who can't let go? Hurry up and book me a ticket for the day after tomorrow." In the afternoon, Murphy had to go to Beijing to participate in a 2-day recording of a variety show. But according to Murphy's own plan, after this business trip, she would take half a month off to accompany her daughter. Although Niu Meiling had become more and more snobbish in the past few years, she didn't have any intention of falling out with Murphy. She still very gently approved Murphy's long leave. One must know that some of the newcomers in the company or the trainees in the practice room didn't receive such good treatment at all. How could there be such a thing as a holiday? After Murphy lectured Mo Shaowan, she felt relieved. She looked back at the computer that she had just sent the email on and thought to herself, perhaps this is for the best. Don't think about taking shortcuts. If it's yours, it'll be yours. If it's not yours, Murphy, you can't take it. All of this, the initiator, Yang E, still didn't know. After he sent the email, he threw the computer aside. Just like how Chong Zi couldn't reach Yang E without calling, this guy would only log on to SNS or email when he needed it. When would Yang E see Murphy's email? This was still unknown. Now, Yang E was playing with his daughter in the coffee shop. By the way, Shi, who wanted a weapon, went to the East Sea Dragon Palace. "Do you know the sea?" Yang E gestured. "It's very big, very blue, and it's full of water." After listening to the story of Journey to the West yesterday, the little girl was fascinated by the monkey that jumped out of the stone. She pestered her father to continue the story of the monkey all day long. She even didn't want to watch her favorite cartoon. Anyway, there was nothing to do. It was close to noon, and there were no customers in the coffee shop. Yang-yi told his daughter another story. I've seen the sea. It's very big. She raised a small hand and said seriously, it's a long flight to go back to Grandma's house. Then there's the sea below, and Mom said there are big fish in it. Yes, Sun Wukong ran into the sea and asked the Dragon King for a weapon. Yang-yi said. She was very puzzled. She asked, why can he go into the sea? Mom said the sea is terrible. She can't go into the sea to play. She can't go into the sea to play, because she hasn't learned how to swim yet, but Sun Wukong can. Yang-yi explained with a smile. Oh. He has to learn how to swim. She nodded as if she understood. After a while, Yang-yi finally talked about how Sun Wukong got the most precious treasure of the East Sea Dragon Palace, the sea stabilizing needle. It's a very big and thick stick, but Sun Wukong can make it smaller. It's about the same size as the stick in Dad's hand. Yang-yi said excitedly. He even dismantled the mop, leaving the handle in his hand. She ran over excitedly and asked her father to play with it. Of course, she could hold it with both hands, but she couldn't wave the long handle. After all, she was still too young. This Jingu Bang, it weighs 13,500 jin. Even if it's smaller, the weight hasn't changed. It's almost as heavy as 2 or 3 cars. Yang-yi said, but Sun Wukong is just right for me. He can dance with it in his hand. She was still thinking about how heavy 2 or 3 cars were at first, but soon, the little girl's attention was completely attracted by her father's performance. Yang-yi stood on his tiptoes and looked at the moon with the mop in his hand. Then, he took a step back and hit the stick on the ground with his right hand. Then, he hooked the stick with his heel in the air like a football, balancing it perfectly in the air. Then, Yang-yi tiptoed and the stick bounced up in the air. He leaned sideways and held the middle part of the stick with his left hand. With just the movement of his fingers and wrist, the stick spun like a big windmill. Woo woo woo! The hollow stick created afterimages and whistled in the wind. Wow! She exclaimed. She watched without blinking her big eyes. Her 2 small hands were in the air as if she also had a stick in her hand. She was unconsciously twisting it. Yang-yi, of course, had never learned the monkey show before. However, he had always been a hardcore fan of Liu Xiaotong, so he had watched many of his performance videos. With his skills, he naturally couldn't do it as vividly as Liu Xiaotong, but it was no problem for him to imitate a little and fool his daughter. That's it. Sun Wukong got his favorite weapon, and the Dragon King, shrimp soldiers, and crab generals of the East Sea Dragon Palace were very happy to send this troublemaker away. Yang-yi waved the Jingu Bang for a while and then stopped to finish the story. But at this moment, the little girl had no time to listen to the story. Her eyes were full of little stars and she praised with admiration, "Papa is so awesome." Chapter 122. Today, Mr. Liu from the Sahara Publishing House came to Zhongqing to visit Yang-yi. However, his main purpose was to deliver the letters sent by the readers in the past half a month. There are still letters from readers? Yang-yi had read the book review section once before. He felt that there were a lot of trolls in it, so he never visited it again. If the readers had any opinions, they would at most get it from Chongzi. Now that he saw this kind of traditional letter, he felt that it was quite novel and opened it to read. This is because there are still a considerable number of readers of physical books. They may be a little older, so they still prefer this ancient way of communication. Mr. Liu sat on the sofa in front of Yang-yi, his hands on his knees, a little reserved. Yang-yi still read very seriously. He also felt that such letters from readers were very intimate. Moreover, after opening a few letters, not only were there no trolls, but they were also very serious about their feelings after reading the book. Every word that was drawn with a stiff pen reflected their efforts. After reading a few letters, Yang-yi had the idea of replying to a few of the previous letters. Of course, he couldn't reply to all of them. Mr. Liu brought a sack of stamps. If Yang Yi was interested in collecting stamps, the stamps could be pasted on a few large booklets. In the middle, Yang Yi inadvertently looked up and saw Mr. Lu sitting on the sofa awkwardly and bored. She was looking at him curiously, and his neck was a little stiff. He couldn't help but laugh and said to Mr. Lu in Cantonese, "Lu Shang, why are you so nervous? Relax, just treat this as your own home." In order to not make Mr. Lu so embarrassed, Yang Yi remembered another thing. He went back to the study, took out a stack of printed manuscripts, and handed it to Mr. Lu. "Since you are here, I'll have to trouble you, Lu Sheng, to help me see if this collection of fairy tales of mine is worth publishing." Yang Yi laughed. This stack of printed manuscripts was the fairy tales that Yang Yi had recently sorted out. They were all stories that he had told Shi. There were dozens of them, big and small. Originally, Yang Yi had the idea of publishing these stories. Later, because Murphy wanted to read them, Yang Yi did not delay and took the time to organize them. Of course, Yang Yi didn't know how the fairy tale books were published in this world. In addition, many of the stories in this world were made up by him based on some framework. He didn't know if there would be any difference when compared to the original version. It just so happened that Mr. Lu was here. Let him give some advice. Mr. Lu was surprised. He looked at Yang Yi and asked, "Yang Yi, you know how to write fairy tales?" This was too miraculous. Not to mention the subject matter of Yang Yi's previous books, just looking at Yang Yi's figure and muscles, an 8-foot-tall man writing a fairy tale, it was probably as unrealistic as a fairy tale, right? Wasn't this the legendary embroidery of Zhang Fei? Yang Yi didn't mind. He smiled and said, "These stories are actually made up by me and told to my daughter. She quite liked it, but it was still a child after all. So I don't know if it's good or not. Mr. Lu, you have to read it to know." Shi, who was at the side, heard her father say that she was a child. She pouted unhappily. However, she didn't disturb her father. Her father was talking about work. Mr. Lu wasn't a manager specializing in children's literature, but he had been in this industry for a long time. Moreover, he had been working as an editor for a long time, so he still had a good eye. After more than half an hour, he had only read a few stories. However, sensing Yang Yi's eager and expectant eyes, Mr. Lu reluctantly put down the manuscript in his hand and smiled embarrassedly. "These stories are indeed written by Yang Yi. I, a man in my 40s, can still be fascinated by them." Mr. Lu gave a very high evaluation and said, "Whether it's a single story or a whole, Yang Shang's stories are more wonderful than those fairy tales in the current market. I'm not flattering you, because I'm also a father. Although my son has long passed the age of reading fairy tales, if he was still young, I would definitely be willing to buy such a book for him to read. It's just..." Mr. Lu was a little hesitant. He said hesitantly, "Sahara Publishing has no advantage in the field of children's literature. We have never published such a type of book." This was really an honest person. Mr. Lu wanted to persuade Yang Yi to find a more professional children's literature publishing house. Fortunately, Fu Jun was the boss. Otherwise, an honest manager like him would have been fired long ago. "It's okay." Yang Yi waved his hand in satisfaction and said, "Sahara Publishing it is. I'll send the manuscript to your email. As for the rest, you and the editor of the publishing house can decide." Of course, this stack of printed manuscripts couldn't be brought back to Mr. Lu. Yang Yi had printed them out for Murphy to read. After sending Mr. Lu off, Yang Yi welcomed a rare guest. "Long time no see. You can finally show your face." Yang Yi smiled and teased him. "Sigh, don't mention it. Since the interview with the TV station, I've been grounded by my dad." Guazi's face was a little rounder. It seemed that he had eaten a lot at home, but he had also grown a lot taller. His figure looked slimmer. A 16-year-old teenager was at the age where he was growing. Yang Yi knew that Guazi had been grounded at home. When he saw the little fatty's interview on TV, Yang Yi felt that this guy was a little too flamboyant. Sure enough, before Yang Yi could say anything, Guazi was beaten up by his father. Then, he was grounded at home to reflect. Yang Yi didn't know the effect of his reflection. Anyway, Guazi, this chatterbox, couldn't use a mobile phone or a computer at home. He must be bored to death. Today, the letter of acceptance arrived, so my dad allowed me to come out. Guazi said with some palpitations. The feeling of being grounded was really torture. It's good to be grounded. You're going to go to college, but you're still so unreliable. Yang Yi was used to being a stay-at-home dad, so he spoke in an educating tone. Okay, brother Yang, don't tease me. Guazi said gloomily, this time, I'm here to let you see my acceptance letter and to give our cutest little sister Shishi a birthday present. Ah, Shishi has a present? The little girl who was nestled in her father's arms suddenly became spirited and asked happily. Yes. Guazi looked at Yang Yi unhappily. You see, your dad is so hateful. He didn't even inform me of little sister Shi's birthday. Otherwise, I would have an excuse to ask my dad to give me a day off. Ahem, no, it's to give little sister Shi a present. Call her Shi. Yang Yi seriously corrected, you're an uncle, not a brother. Hee. Uncle Gua. She also followed her father and said with a giggle. Chapter 123. Since she was pestering him for a present, Guazi had no choice but to put down the notice and take out the birthday present he had prepared for Shi. She had now become an expert at opening presents. Her swift movements allowed her to remove the wrapping paper and ribbon in a few moves. When she opened the box, a small cartoon pillow was revealed. The cartoon image on it was a cute little girl with blue eyes, blue hair, and a white wreath. She had small hands and feet and a big head. She looked very cute. When she saw it, she shouted happily, "It's Rem." Rem was the cartoon image of the world's most popular cartoon, Roswell. It was not that its plot was wonderful, but it used a cartoon style that had never appeared before, which made the whole animation style particularly cute. Yang Yi had seen a lot of such drawings in his previous life, so he was not interested in this cartoon. However, she liked it very much. Hee, I knew she would like it. Guazi laughed and said, I asked my sister, and she said that she likes this Rem the most now. You have a sister? Yang Yi asked in surprise. Yes. But my sister is already 12 years old. Guazi scratched his head and said embarrassedly, but the things that girls like should be similar. I bought the right gift. Yang Yi looked at his daughter's happy expression as she hugged the Rem pillow and did not want to let go. He said to Guazi seriously, but she still likes the gift from her father the most. Guazi was a little confused. He scratched his head and said, okay, as long as you're happy. While she was playing with the pillow, Yang Yi looked at Guazi's admission notice. He raised his head in confusion and asked, Electronic Media Major? Do you like this major? Guazi shook his head. Then why did you sign up for this major? Yang Yi was even more puzzled. Guazi grinned and said, Big brother Yang, didn't I tell you before? The reason why I came back to Zhongqing Media University is because I want to attend the performing arts course. Then he could prove himself and prove that he wasn't like those examiners who looked down on him, that he couldn't be an actor just because he was fat and young. Guazi didn't say anything else. Both he and Yang Yi were well aware of it. It seemed that the confinement had some effect. Anyway, my results are good. Other than some majors that require art test results, I can choose any of them. So, I chose this major with the highest admission score. Guazi said proudly. All right. Yang Yi thought that Guazi had a deeper meaning for choosing this major. Guazi patted his chubby thigh and seemed to remember something. He smiled and said, By the way, big brother Yang, let me tell you something fun. Oh. Yang Yi felt that this guy seemed to have been cooped up for too long and was about to start chattering again. Didn't I get locked up at home by my dad and can't go out to play? Guazi said excitedly, It was too boring. I could only look for books at home. Guess what I saw? Guazi didn't wait for Yang Yi to guess and said happily, I saw a book called Drawing Sword on my dad's bookshelf. The content was quite good, but guess what? Its author is also called Yang Yi. Guazi was convulsing with laughter. Let me tell you, my dad likes this book very much. So, I said to my dad one day, Dad, I have a friend called Yang Yi. Do you want me to ask him to give you an autograph? Yang Yi continued to be speechless. I said, If Yang Yi gives you an autograph, Dad, will you not put me in confinement? Guazi told this to Yang Yi as a joke. As a result, my dad slapped me in the face. You don't do your job every day. You think about useless things and do meaningless things. You brat, you want to know a great author like Yang Yi? Haha, Big Brother Yang, don't you think it's a coincidence? There really is an author with the same name as you. Guazi wanted to get the same incredulous and funny response from Yang Yi. Yang Yi looked at him speechlessly. After a long silence, he reached out his hand and said, Give it to me. Give what? Guazi was puzzled. Give it to me for an autograph. Yang Yi said seriously. Little Fatty's head was full of question marks. After a while, he came to his senses and pointed at Yang Yi in surprise. Yang, Big Brother Yang, you're Yang Yi? She heard half of what he said this time. She ran over and said contemptuously, Uncle Gua, you're so useless. You don't even know that my papa's name is Yang Yi. I know when I'm only 3 years old. You're 4 years old, Yang Yi reminded her with a smile. The depressed little fatty looked at Shi, who was acting like a little adult, and felt a little helpless. However, he still looked at Yang Yi in surprise. Big Brother Yang, are you really the author who wrote Drawing Sword? Yang Yi smiled faintly and said, It's the real deal. Oh my God, I actually know a great author. Guazi held Yang Yi's hand excitedly and said, That's amazing. I thought it was just a coincidence. Yang Yi pushed him away in disgust. Get lost, get lost. If you want an autograph, give me the book. I haven't signed it for anyone yet. I don't want an autograph, Guazi said with a smile. If your drawing sword is made into a movie, can you give me a role? What role? I think I'm quite similar to Li Yunlong. Guazi laughed shamelessly. Get lost. How about Chu Yunfei? I think Chu Yunfei should be half as handsome as me. Get lost. What about Zhao Gang? He's a big supporting role. Get lost as far as your thoughts can go. Sister-in-law Xiuqin is also good. I can dress up as a woman and then sacrifice myself heroically on the city wall. How can you say that? Go to hell. Yang Yi felt that he would never be able to face such a role in the future. Look at you, you're more like a traitor. A traitor is fine too. Do I have a lot of scenes? I can play a traitor who leads the way, a traitor who forces a good woman into prostitution. Alright, I can also play a traitor who pretends to be nice but is actually an undercover traitor. I'm not shooting anymore. I don't care who shoots. Guazi did not stay for dinner this time. His time was very tight. When he left, he said with great ambition, Big Brother Yang, for the next half a month, I'm going to the Capital Film and Television Base to play a small role. Please wish me good luck. The little fatty was trying his best to carve out a bloody path on the path of an actor. Therefore, even if he was usually cheeky, he still had a clear plan. Yang Ming did not know how he convinced his family to let him go alone to the messy capital to compete with those Beijing drifters for small roles. However, Yang Yi still admired his drive, so he patted Guazi on the shoulder and smiled slightly. Come on, there's a way to succeed where there's a will. Big Brother Yang believes that you can succeed. If I succeed, can I get a lead role when I come back? Get lost. Chapter 124. In the evening, Yang Yi told his daughter the story of Journey to the West, as usual. After coaxing the little girl to sleep, he returned to his study. Turning on the computer, Yang Yi needed to send the digital manuscript of the fairy tale collection to Mr. Liu. However, before sending it out, Yang Yi had to change the title of the book. It definitely couldn't be called a fairy tale collection. That name was too vulgar. What should I call it? Yang's Fairy Tales? Leon's Fairy Tales? Yang Yi temporarily looked for inspiration from the example of Grimm's Fairy Tales, but it seemed a little inappropriate. 1001 Nights. Yang Yi felt that the name was not good. It always reminded him of Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves. It had a strong desert fairy tale style. In the end, Yang Yi decided to change the title of the book to Shi's Bedtime Stories. Then, he left a sentence on the title page. This book is dedicated to my lovely daughter, Shi, and thousands of children. I wish you all a sweet and fantasy dream like Shi. Perfect. Yang Yi saved the document with satisfaction, and then sent it to Mr. Liu as an attachment. He also asked Mr. Liu to remind the editor of the typesetting review not to change the title of his book and the title page. I seem to have forgotten something. Yang Yi patted his head. Right, there were also illustrations. How could a qualified fairy tale book not have beautiful illustrations? Yang Yi didn't want other artists to draw the characters in the story for him, such as Elsa, Anna, and Snowbow and Frozen, or Snow White, dwarfs, and so on. If the design was bad, Shi would be unhappy when she saw it in the future. When Yang Yi told Shi stories, he used the little girl sketches to draw the scenes and characters so that Shi could have a more intuitive impression of them. Of course, those drawings were still relatively simple pencil drawings. Yang Yi intended to organize these drawings and send them to Sahara Publishing House, asking them to help find a real artist to reproduce and enrich the illustrations into colorful illustrations. After making up his mind, Yang Yi added a few more sentences in the email, reminding him of these things. There's mail? Just as Yang Yi was about to close his email and quickly type out the remaining content of The Remaining Sins, he unexpectedly saw an email from Murphy. Yang Yi scratched his head and hurriedly opened it to take a look. He had actually been ignored by him for a few days. I'm sorry. I'm very grateful. But I'm still very sorry. I have to say thank you again. Yang Yi quickly read all the contents of the email in which Mo Fei refused to use his song. There was a strange expression on his face, and he himself didn't know how to express it. Do you think it's funny? This was inevitable. He had used a Smurf account just to design a passable identity so that he could write songs for Murphy and help her out. In the end, he had been misunderstood. However, Yang Yi was also inexplicably moved. What a straightforward woman. Why did she reject him so seriously? She's so cute when she's serious. Although the email didn't directly state that it was changed by Mo Xiaowan, Yang Yi still felt that Murphy chose to reject him because of him. So he was also rejected because of him? This was truly. Yang Yi felt a headache from this logic, but now wasn't the time to worry about whether he should be jealous or not. It wasn't the time to worry about how to get rid of the strange feeling of being poached by him. The most important thing now was how to persuade Murphy not to let her imagination run wild and let her accept the songs he gave her. Although Yang Yi took the risk of letting Murphy doubt him to open a Smurf account to write songs for Murphy, it was partly because of Shi's request. However, the main reason was that Yang Yi wanted to help Murphy out of her predicament. He didn't want to see Murphy's disappointed expression after the failure of her comeback album. He also didn't want to see her forcing a smile for Shi. He also didn't want Murphy to be questioned and used as an example by some people on TV. Murphy had an unparalleled voice and a wide range. She also had unremitting perseverance and fighting spirit. She belonged to the top stage, singing loudly under the cheers of tens of thousands of fans like Channy Jie, instead of being tired on the road to various jobs for her dream. Even if Murphy wasn't Shi's mother, Yang Yi also liked her songs and hoped to help her out of her predicament. Therefore, Yang Yi pondered for a while and replied to an email. The wording was as relaxed as possible to express an indifferent and open-minded attitude. Ahaha Murphy, you misunderstood. I'm just a very ordinary fan of yours. I just want to write songs for you because I like your voice. Liking someone and loving someone are different. You may have heard Channy Jie's Long Time Not Seeing and Better Not Seeing You. I wrote those songs for him, not because I love him. I like his voice. Among the male singers, I think Channy Jie sings the best. Among the female singers, you are also the number one in my heart. Like some emotional venting in the lyrics, to tell you the truth, the person I want to express is not you, but another woman I love deeply. I'm sorry for the trouble these misunderstandings have caused you, but I still hope that these songs of mine can be sung by you. Because your voice is the best, and only you can perform them to the best of your ability. Please do your best. I'm looking forward to your new album. In order to make it as easy as possible for Murphy to read, Yang Yi even imitated the famous Wan Wan accent from his previous life. He wrote until he was about to vomit. It was too awkward and really not suitable for a tall person like him. After he finished writing, Yang Yi carefully read it again. When he felt that there shouldn't be any problems, he sent it out. This time, there shouldn't be any more misunderstandings, right? Yang Yi thought to himself. Yang Yi sent the email in the middle of the night, so Murphy naturally couldn't see it. Mo Xiaowan also went on a business trip with Murphy. Although Mo Xiaowan would bring her laptop with her to do work, she wouldn't always open it to guard her email. The next day, Murphy still had to record for half a day. Mo Xiaowan also followed the TV station the whole time and didn't have time to open her laptop. Xiaowan, can you help me buy a few cups of coffee? I'll treat everyone. Murphy took the time to come out and said to Mo Xiaowan. The recording this time was considered quite high-end. The people participating in the recording were basically seniors in the industry. Murphy was considered the youngest junior, so naturally, she should take the initiative to treat everyone. Mo Xiaowan hurriedly nodded. She quickly walked out of the TV station and went to the coffee shop across the building to buy coffee. There were dozens of cups. Better to have more than one cup. Although the coffee shop staff would help deliver it later, waiting for so many cups of coffee to be brewed and made would take some time. Thus, Mo Xiaowan was bored and walked to the bookstore next door to flip through some of the best-selling books on the shelves. Mo Xiaowan accidentally saw a familiar name, Yang Yi. She walked over and picked up a copy of Soldier Assault and flipped through it. Mo Xiaowan didn't think it was a coincidence like Guazi. After all, she heard from Murphy that Yang Yi was writing a book. If I'm not wrong, this should be written by brother-in-law. Mo Xiaowan thought to herself. The change in Yang Yi when he came in changed Mo Xiaojuan's opinion of him a little. Although she was still unforgiving and kept calling him Yang Yi, she had somewhat acknowledged him in her heart. This is our best-selling novel in the market now. A young male shop assistant came over and introduced it to Mo Xiaowan attentively. The author also has another book called Drawing Sword. It's also very popular. Look, there's no more on the shelves. It's almost out of stock every day. It's that good? Mo Xiaowan asked with some surprise. Of course. But miss, if you want to buy it, you can leave your contact information. We'll be sure to inform you when we get the stock tomorrow. I promise to keep one for you. The male shop assistant looked expectantly at Mo Xiaojuan's beautiful face and said. Hee, there's no need to leave your contact information. If I want it, I think I can ask my relatives for it. Mo Xiaowan smiled charmingly at him and patted the male shop assistant on the shoulder. Oh, him. He definitely has connections to help me get it. After leaving the male shop assistant, whose bones were melted by her smile, Mo Xiaowan returned to the coffee shop thoughtfully. With 2 best-selling books, brother-in-law should be very rich, right? Mo Xiaojuan's eyes turned and an idea came to her. Chapter 125. Mo Fei didn't see the email until she returned to Jiang City. Of course, it was Mo Xiaowan, who was so excited that she was dancing with joy, who showed it to her. The misunderstanding has been cleared up. Sis, you can use these songs without worry. Mo Xiaowan said happily. Mu Ziang is a pretty good person. He's talented and knows how to be romantic. He wrote such nice songs for the person he likes. It's a pity that he already has someone he likes. As Mo Xiaowan spoke, she started to feel sorry for herself. It was as if Mu Ziang didn't express that he had someone he loved deeply, she would chase after him instead. However, Mo Fei was not as happy as expected. She looked at the content of the reply letter and frowned slightly. She seemed to be a little sleepy. It was a good thing that the misunderstanding was cleared up, but for some reason, Murphy felt that something was wrong. The reply gave her a strange feeling, but she couldn't tell what it was. Maybe I'm thinking too much? Murphy's face was cold, but her heart wasn't calm. Mo Shawan poked Murphy and asked excitedly, "Sis, can we tell Sister Ling now? Now that we have 12 songs, we can let Sister Ling arrange a new album." Mo Shawan had long been unhappy with those people's snobbish attitudes. Now that she was rubbing her hands together, it was like slapping their faces. "Humph, didn't you look down on us? Didn't you laugh at us for not being able to get 12 songs by ourselves? Didn't you think we would come back crying and begging you for help? Look, we don't need you and we can do it well." Mo Xiaojuan's heart was filled with the scene of everyone looking at her in shock and admiration. However, Murphy wasn't as excited as she was and said lightly, "No need for now." Huh? Mo Xiaowan still hadn't recovered. "I've already asked Sister Ling for 2 weeks of leave. The main thing during this time is to find a suitable kindergarten for Shi. Murphy felt very tired. She waved her hand and explained softly, "So about the album, let's put it aside for now. We'll talk about it when I come back." "Okay." Mo Xiaowan pouted and said reluctantly. Murphy was coming. Yang Yi got the latest news from Shi. The little girl received a call from her mother and talked for a long time. Mom said that she's coming to live with Papa and Shi. Shi excitedly jumped around her father. Her long and slender legs made people worry that they would break. "Really?" Yang Yi took out a few fresh fruits that he had bought in the morning from the fridge and prepared to make some fruit salad. Cici was a little picky now. She didn't want to eat simple fruits. She only liked mixed and colorful fruits. "Really? And I know why Mom is coming." She puffed out her chest, raised her head and said to her father. That longing look in her eyes seemed to say, "Do you want to know? If you want to know, ask Shi." "Oh, why is that?" Yang Yi asked with a smile. Of course, he knew why Murphy came. Murphy had already told him. But since she wanted to express so much, Yang Yi also went with the flow to satisfy the little guy. However, she seemed to have thought of something. She hesitated for a moment and said, "Ugh. No, I can't tell Papa. I can't say this." All of a sudden, Yang Yi, who had only wanted to tease her daughter, was depressed. "Ah, you can't say it?" Yang Yi asked in surprise. However, she covered her mouth and ran away again, as if she was afraid of her father's questioning. Yang Yi was left in the same place, baffled and confused. He didn't know that Shi's so-called "know why" was just her own imagination. The little guy made a wish on her birthday. She hoped that her parents could stay with Shi forever. Now, her mother really said that she would move here. She didn't know that Murphy would only stay here for a few days. The little guy was so happy, thinking that her wish had come true. Just when she wanted to tell her father proudly, her mother's words came to her mind, "Wishes don't come true if they are said out loud." She didn't want to say it again. The naive little girl really hoped that this wish could come true all the time. But Yang Yi couldn't think of Shi's way of thinking, even if he was reborn 100 times. After Murphy finished packing her things, Mo Xiaowan brought it over. She looked a little tired and didn't look well. Yang Yi took the luggage from her when he saw her. "Surname. Ahem, brother-in-law, my sister is in your care." Mo Xiaowan finally changed the way she addressed Yang Yi. Murphy still felt a little uncomfortable when she heard Mo Xiaowan address Yang Yi this way. She glared at Mo Xiaowan, but she was a little dizzy and didn't have the energy to speak. Mo Xiaowan stuck out her tongue and drove away. "Let's go up," Yang Yi said softly, reminding Murphy, who was a little absent-minded. Murphy said, and followed Yang Yi silently. Why was she so cold today? Yang Yi felt a little uncomfortable, as if they were back to the time when they were incompatible like fire and water. However, Yang Yi was never a proactive person. When Murphy was silent, he didn't ask her. Just like when she didn't want to talk about it before, Yang Yi didn't ask. Because of Murphy's arrival, Yang Yi also carefully prepared dinner for tonight. Of course, it wasn't Western food. He knew that Murphy often went to Western restaurants to eat. Those Western dishes were all the same. She would get tired of eating too many of them. So he tried his best to cook Chinese food at home. He made delicious and beautiful Chinese food. This is winter melon and shrimp soup. The shrimps are fresh, peeled, and marinated with lemon juice and a little ginger. Before putting it into the pot, the egg white is needed. This can ensure the freshness and taste of the shrimps. In addition to winter melon, there are also wolfberries in the soup. Drinking it not only has the effect of reducing internal heat, but also can nourish the blood and beautify the skin. Yang Yi explained while serving soup for them. I like shrimps. She raised her small chopsticks and said, Papa, give me more shrimps. No winter melon. Mom, this is for you. Murphy didn't drink it and took the initiative to give it to her daughter. There are many more. Try it. Yang Yi smiled and scooped up shrimps for them. Today's main dish was more sumptuous. There was a 3-sauce stew mixed with chicken wings, ribs, potatoes, and many other ingredients to make a thick sauce. There was also Shi's favorite sweet and sour pineapple sweet and sour pork, and there was also a light seaweed tofu pot. In addition, Yang Yi also prepared an after-dinner dessert, papaya and longan stewed with tremella. However, although she ate very happily and her belly was round after a while, Murphy didn't seem to have a good appetite. She didn't even want to eat the heavy 3-sauce stew. She just ate a few mouthfuls of rice with the light seaweed and tofu. What's wrong? Is it not to your taste? Yang Yi finally couldn't help but ask. Murphy shook her head and said in a low voice, No, I just feel that my appetite is not very good. I'm sorry. What's wrong? Yang Yi frowned. He found a problem. Compared with when they just arrived home, Murphy's face became much rosier. Chapter 126. Murphy's face was a little red. Yang Yi had thought that it was because she was hot and had asked Murphy about it, but Murphy had told him not to lower the temperature. I'm a little cold. At that time, Murphy's words were still echoing in Yang Yi's ears. Now, Yang Yi, who felt that something was wrong, could see more clearly. This wasn't a normal red. It wasn't a problem with the lighting. It was a kind of flush, similar to the red of the plateau. It was also a little like the blush on the face of someone who couldn't really drink alcohol. It was caused by the expansion of the capillaries. What's wrong? Yang Yi's sudden gaze made Murphy feel a little uncomfortable. However, she was dizzy and didn't have the energy to think about it. Suddenly, Yang Yi stood up. His arm stretched out, directly across the table, and pressed it on Murphy's forehead. Murphy was suddenly stunned. It was as if she had been suddenly pressed against the wall. She stared blankly at Yang Yi, who was looking at her with concern. She, who was next to them, also opened her eyes wide to watch the commotion. However, her 2 small hands were grabbing the chicken wings and eating hard. Her mouth didn't stop moving. Yang Yi's expression was very serious. He felt the temperature of Murphy's forehead. It was boiling hot. Obviously, there was a problem. He couldn't help but scold, Why is it so hot? Hot? Murphy asked in a daze. Yang Yi put down the chopsticks in his left hand, walked around the table, and gently held Murphy's head. Then, he touched her forehead to confirm. He asked reproachfully, It's very hot. Why didn't you tell me that you had a fever? Murphy's head was really dizzy. When she was held by Yang Yi, she couldn't even raise the thought of struggling. Instead, she seemed to have found support in Yang Yi's arms. Her head was even dizzier. Fever? Really? After returning from Beijing today, Murphy felt a little tired. She thought it was because she had been too tired for the past few days. Even when she told Mo Xiaowan, she asked Mo Xiaowan if she had eye bags. It seemed like she hadn't had a good rest. Mo Xiaowan comforted her with a smile. Sister, your face is still rosy. This was the color of health, the taste of happiness. Hurry up, go to my brother-in-law's place and let him nourish you again. At that time, Murphy still had the strength to chase after Mo Shawan, who did not know how to choose her words carefully. However, she did not know that her tiredness was not because she was tired or sleepy. He really has a fever. Sigh, what should I say about you? He's already so old, yet he doesn't even know that he has a fever. Yang Yi looked at Murphy's listless appearance and was very anxious. He suddenly bent down and carried Murphy. Don't faint. Murphy wanted to feel wronged and retort, but she suddenly felt as if she was riding on clouds. She was shocked. She subconsciously reached out her two thin arms and tightly hugged Yang Yi's neck, afraid that she would fall. Yang Yi only carried her to the sofa. Then he turned around and took out the medical box that he had hidden at home. He took out the mercury thermometer, shook it, and put it on Murphy. Wait a moment and see what's the temperature. Yang Yi sat on the sofa next to her and said unhappily, If you feel uncomfortable, you should have said so earlier. When I touched it just now, it was so hot that you could boil an egg. Don't scold me. Murphy covered her eyes and said sadly. Her voice was weak and her lips were pale without any color. What's wrong with Mom? Shi's mouth was full of oil and her hands were dirty. She climbed down from the chair and ran over to ask. Mom is sick. She must have a fever. Yang Yi's eyes were sharp and his hands were fast. He grabbed Shi's little hands that were still stained with sauce and put her on the sofa. Yang Yi carried his daughter to the bathroom to wash her hands and wipe her face. Are you full? I'm full. Shi pointed to her bulging belly and said with a smile, Papa, look. My belly is so big. Yang Yi didn't care too much. If Murphy saw this, she would definitely say that the little girl was not reserved. Papa, Papa. When they were about to go out, she took her father's hand and put it on her forehead. She shouted, Papa, see if she is sick. It turned out that she had just seen her father use his hand to check the temperature of her mother's forehead. She thought there was some magical detection method in it. Yang Yi rubbed the little girl's air bangs and said, Well, you're not sick. Go and play. Dad has to take care of Mom. She nodded obediently, but she didn't play by herself. She just held her big bear cub and looked at her mother and father. 38. 8 degrees. It's almost 39 degrees. Yang Yi frowned. That's good. Murphy tried to smile and said to Shi, who was looking at her with concern, It's not serious. I'll be fine after a sleep. How can that be? How long have you had a fever? If you don't lower the temperature, you'll only get hotter later. Yang Yi shook his head and said, No, I have to take you to the hospital. No, I don't want to go to the hospital. Murphy reacted strongly. I'll put on makeup for you. No one will recognize you. Yang Yi thought that Murphy was worried about her identity being exposed. No, I don't want to go to the hospital. Murphy curled up on the sofa like a little girl and said sadly, It's only 38 degrees. I don't want to go to the hospital. If I go, I'll have to take an injection. Yang Yi understood that she was afraid of injections. Just when Yang Yi felt angry and funny, Shi ran over. She struggled to hold the big bear cub and said very considerately, Mom, Shi will give you the big bear cub, okay? As long as you hold the big bear cub, you'll be fine soon. Murphy rubbed her daughter's little face with relief, but Yang Yi still asked Shi to take the big bear cub away. Shi, your mother is sick now. She needs a quiet and ventilated environment. The big bear cub is too big, and it'll be very hot to hold. Since Murphy didn't want to go to the hospital, Yang Yi had to think of other ways. Yang Yi was an expert when it came to bandaging or simply dealing with external injuries. In his medical kit, there were a lot of backup bandages and medicine. Although these were unlikely to be used, Yang Yi still prepared medical equipment and sufficient medicine for himself to take out the bullet and bandage the wound after he was shot, just in case. But Yang Yi was not very good at treating fever, this minor illness, and there was no ordinary fever medicine at home. There was a special medicine that could forcibly lower one's temperature, but it would cause a lot of damage to the body, so of course, he could not give it to Mo Fei. So Yang Yi had to go out to buy medicine, and he didn't even clean up the messy tableware on the table. This was something that he couldn't tolerate in the past. When Yang Yi came back with the fever medicine, Murphy had fallen asleep on the sofa. Yang Yi woke her up and coaxed her to drink the medicine. After drinking it, have a good sleep. Don't worry, you'll be fine tomorrow. Murphy was a little confused. She only felt that she was leaning in Yang Yi's arms. After drinking the medicine, she was carried by Yang Yi to the guest room where he slept. Finally, in the warm bed, Murphy fell asleep. Chapter 127. The next day, although the window was facing the west and the sun couldn't be seen, the cheerful chirping of birds outside the window was already announcing the beginning of a new day. On the big bed in the second bedroom, a sleeping beauty was curled up on her side. Her long hair was quietly spread out on the pillow, and her soft lips were slightly pursed, as if she was waiting for her prince to kiss her awake. Murphy's eyelashes were very long, and Shishi's eyelashes were very similar to her mother's. She had inherited many of Murphy's good looks, but Shishi's big eyes were inherited from her father. They were very cute. The chirping of the birds outside the window was too noisy. Murphy's eyelashes trembled, and she slowly opened her eyes. After a night of rest, Murphy's fever had subsided. Although her body was still a little weak, her spirit was much better than yesterday. After rubbing her eyes in a daze, Murphy began to come back to her senses, and memories came flooding back like a tide. Yesterday, he carried me here? Murphy recalled the scene last night, and she felt her face become a little hot. She was really blushing this time. She hurriedly lifted the quilt and looked inside. Her clothes were still neat, but they were a little wrinkled after sleeping for a night. Last night, when Yang Yi carried her back, he didn't offend the beauty at all. He didn't take the initiative to change her clothes. This discovery made Murphy's good impression of Yang Yi rise a lot. She was actually very traditional, and Yang Yi's gentlemanly behavior was something she could accept. It made her feel very comfortable and warm in her heart. Ouch! Murphy turned over and sat up from the quilt. After sleeping for more than 10 hours, although her head was awake, her body was sore. She sat up and stretched her body. Murphy's figure was very good. The thin shirt couldn't cover the ups and downs of her breasts. This stretch of her body was very big. Not only did the bones in her body crack, but the shirt that was pushed up high also couldn't support the top button. Murphy quickly fastened the buttons back with a red face. Fortunately, there was no one else in the room. Just as she thought of this, Murphy suddenly noticed that there was a chair beside the bed. On it was a neatly folded towel. At the head of the bed, there was a basin of water and a towel hanging on the edge of the basin. He spent the whole night with me? Murphy was stunned. Yang Yi had indeed spent the night with Murphy. After drinking the medicine, Murphy's fever didn't go down quickly, and her forehead was burning up. Yang Yi poured a basin of cold water and used a cold towel to cool down Murphy's forehead. He had to change the towel every once in a while. This took a long time. Later on, although Murphy's condition stabilized, Yang Yi was not confident. He was worried that it would relapse, so he moved a chair and sat beside Murphy's bed to watch over her for the whole night. Of course, Murphy didn't know all the details. But looking at all these, she could roughly guess. She pursed her lips. Although she wasn't good at expressing her emotions, Murphy could clearly feel that her heart was really stirred by these scenes. After getting off the bed, Murphy tidied up her messy hair and tidied her clothes before pushing open the bedroom door. Just then, she saw Yang Yi wearing an apron and setting the dining table. Yang Yi didn't go for his morning exercise. He woke up early and tidied up the housework that he didn't have time to do last night. Then, he prepared breakfast in the kitchen. Murphy didn't eat much last night before going to bed. She must be very hungry this morning. Good morning. Murphy and Yang Yi's eyes met, and she lowered her head shyly. She had just woken up, her face hadn't been washed, her hair was messy, and she was still wearing yesterday's clothes. She must be in a mess, right? Murphy suddenly cared about these things. Good morning. Yang-yi put down the bowl in his hand and gently smiled. Do you feel better now? Yes, I feel better, Murphy said softly. However, this feeling was still a little strange. Murphy was still not used to speaking softly like a kitten in front of Yang-yi. Thinking that she hadn't washed up, she quickly waved her hand and went back to the master bedroom. Murphy was actually a clean person. After taking a bath and changing her clothes, she came out of the master bedroom. At this time, she had already smelled the fragrance of breakfast. She got up from the bed and ran to her father's side to ask for food. Mom. When she saw Murphy come out, she dropped the small spoon in her hand, jumped down from the chair, and happily ran to her mother's side to ask for a hug. Have you washed up? Murphy asked softly. If you don't brush your teeth in the morning, you can't eat. Yes, Papa also helped me wipe my face. She had a lot to say to her mother, so she hurriedly answered and then began to chatter. Mom, you don't know, she was so worried about you yesterday. The little girl's grammar was slightly wrong. After all, she was still young. Mom was very happy. How was she worried about Mom? Murphy asked softly. At this time, Yang-yi smiled and handed over a cup of warm water. He signaled with his eyes that he wouldn't interrupt the conversation between the mother and daughter. Murphy got up early in the morning and was busy tidying up her personal image. She didn't have time to drink water, but she was really thirsty. She took a few sips. The warm water immediately moistened her dry throat. It was very comfortable. She said very seriously, she was worried about Mom yesterday. I didn't watch cartoons, and I didn't ask Papa to tell me stories. I took care of Mom with Papa. Fortunately, Mom didn't have a fever. She was really afraid that Mom would get sick. She was really obedient last night. Later, she fell asleep by herself. She was very brave. Yang-yi also praised his daughter with a smile. She heard her father's praise and happily puffed out her small chest, as if to say, yes, such a good child is me. Mom is very touched. Thank you, she, who loves Mom so much. Murphy smiled and kissed her daughter's pink face. After Murphy recovered, she had been moved by Yang-yi's care. Now, she was in a good mood because of the caring care of her little baby. After Murphy recovered, she officially moved into Yang-yi's house. However, in her words, they weren't living together, but she had brought she over for a vacation. Well, Yang-yi didn't care about this. However, with one more woman in the house, life became more colorful. Originally, Yang-yi's life was, when his daughter wasn't around, he would listen to music and wipe the coffee cup in the coffee shop alone for the whole day. When his daughter was around, Yang-yi listened to his daughter's chatter, answered her endless questions, and told her stories. The day passed by peacefully. Now, with Murphy, Yang-yi's daily life seemed to be different. For example, Murphy cared more about the decoration of the house, and she always felt that Yang-yi didn't know how to live. How can there be no flowers at home? Looking around, there are only monotonous and boring colors. You have to get some flowers and put them in a bottle to add some color to your life, Murphy said seriously. Chapter 128. Murphy wasn't a hard-working and virtuous woman. Just by looking at the nanny in her house, it was obvious that she didn't know how to tidy up the room. When Murphy woke up in the morning, Yang-yi returned to the second bedroom and saw that although she had folded the quilt, it was almost the same as if she hadn't folded it. Either there was a small tail here and there, or there was a dent in the edges and corners. So, Yang-yi folded the quilt again and pulled the sheets. However, in terms of quality of life, Murphy was more meticulous than Yang-yi. After all, she was a woman. Yang-yi scratched his head and said, "There are quite a lot of flowers in the garden downstairs. Do you want me to go and pick a few? Those are wild flowers. Compared to the artificially cultivated flowers in the flower shop, whether it's the variety, color, or size, there is a big difference." Murphy was speechless. Since you want to arrange flowers, how can you just make do with it? You go and buy it, I'll do it. Murphy waved her hand coolly and ordered. All right, of course, Yang Yi had to go and buy it. Murphy's face was still easy to recognize. But where could he buy it? Yang Yi walked out of the door and then remembered that he hadn't bought any flowers. But he thought of a flower shop. Yen Xiaopei said that she opened a flower shop at the East Gate. He was magnanimous and didn't have any grudges. He didn't care and went straight to the East Gate and found the flower shop. "Hey, Yang Yi." As soon as Yang Yi walked through the door, Yen Xiaopei recognized him. After all, there weren't many men who could ignore her beauty all these years. Seeing Yang Yi, Yen Xiaopei's heart still had some ripples. It wasn't that she still couldn't forget Yang Yi, but if she didn't get it, she would always feel reluctant. But, after all, he was an adult and there were students working part-time in the shop. Yen Xiaopei smiled and greeted him normally. "Hello." Yang Yi smiled and nodded at her before saying, "Miss Yen, I'd like to buy some flowers." So he came to buy flowers. And Yen Xiaopei knew that Yang Yi definitely didn't buy them for her. Yen Xiaopei remembered the more beautiful woman that Yang Yi's daughter had mentioned. "What kind of flowers do you want to buy? We have roses here, Chinese roses, lilies." Although Yen Xiaopei felt a little sour in her heart, she still said it as if nothing had happened. Yang Yi scratched his head. He really didn't know what to buy. He had an idea and said, "Why don't you pick a few of each for me? Pick the prettier ones." Not to mention the other girls in the shop, even Yen Xiaopei was stunned. Who would buy flowers like this? "Do you really want to buy it like this? If I pick them all, I'm afraid there will be dozens of them." Yen Xiaopei didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Dozens of flowers were not considered a lot. Those rich people who spent money to buy beautiful girls' flowers would buy dozens or even hundreds of flowers. However, Yen Xiaopei had been running a flower shop for a few years, and she had never seen anyone buy dozens of flowers of a variety. "It's okay. I'll buy it like this," Yang Yi said with certainty. "Xiao Luo." Yen Xiaopei helplessly called a part-time girl and said to her, "Help Mr. Yang pick the flowers. He's my friend. Pick the best ones for him." While Yang Yi was picking flowers, an elegantly dressed man walked in with a bouquet of bright red roses in his hand. Yes, he came to the flower shop with flowers. "Xiaopei, are you free tonight? I want to invite you to Binhai for dinner and then go for a ride." The man affectionately handed the flowers to Yen Xiaopei. Naturally, Yen Xiaopei's pursuer wasn't the only one who talked to her like this. In order to get rid of her disappointment, Yen Xiaopei also accepted his pursuit. The man's temperament fascinated Yen Xiaopei. Although there was a big difference between him and Yang Yi, it seemed that this man was better. In addition to Xiao Luo, who was accompanying Yang Yi, there were two part-time girls who snickered and whispered on the side. "Tonight. Let me see." Yen Xiaopei couldn't help but raise her voice slightly and said in a reserved manner, "I'll send Ing Kai to my mom's place. I'm still free." After that, she glanced at Yang Yi. However, the latter didn't react at all. He was still excitedly asking Xiao Luo the name of the flowers. Yen Xiaopei had an indescribable disappointment in her heart, but she also secretly smiled bitterly. "Forget it. It's your own unrequited love." However, Yen Xiaopei's small eyes were still seen by the man. Following Yen Xiaopei's gaze, Yang Yi's tall figure made him faintly vigilant. "This is..." The man couldn't help but ask. Yen Xiaopei held the roses in one hand and held his arm with the other hand. She smiled and said, "This is a friend of mine. He happened to be here to buy flowers today." Yang Yi noticed the hostility in the man's eyes and raised his head in surprise. "Yang Yi, let me introduce you." Yen Xiaopei realized that the man's mood was a bit strange. It seemed that she had gone a bit overboard. She took the initiative to explain and introduce and took the initiative to explain and introduce. "This is Yang Yi. He is also a friend of mine who owns a shop near the school. His daughter and my son are good friends. This is my boyfriend, Yu Chengqing. He runs a training organization." After hearing that Yang Yi had a daughter, Yu Chengqing's expression eased a lot. Instead, he warmly shook hands with Yang Yi and said, "A small training organization relies on the mountain and the water on the river. We rely on Jiang Chuan, so we can only train the candidates in this aspect. Oh, that's good. Yang Yi was quite helpless. He didn't want to know the other person. But to give Yen Xiaopei face, he still reached out his hand and shook hands. Mr. Yang also owns a shop at the East Gate? Yu Qingqing's hostility had subsided, but his enthusiasm didn't. Perhaps it was because he had been in the training industry for a long time. His mood was very high. He took the initiative to ask. He owns a coffee shop at the back gate, which is at the north gate. Yen Xiaopei helped Yang Yi to say, North gate? That's a bit far. Otherwise, I can find a few friends to go there often. However, Yu Chengqing still enthusiastically said, but that's okay. I'll go back and talk to my employees and let them help you promote. Okay, thank you. Yang Yi helplessly nodded to the other person, gratefully. Besides pretending to be grateful, what else could he do? Yen Xiaopei smiled at Yang Yi and pulled Yu Chengqing and said, okay, let my employees take care of Yang Yi. Didn't you want to eat with me? Can you send me home first? Of course, no problem. Yu Chengqing said politely. Before leaving, Yu Chengqing nodded to Yang Yi and made a gesture to talk later. Yang Yi didn't want to see this person again. This person looked elegant, but he was actually such a talkative person. It was okay that he could talk, but Yang Yi felt that Yu Chengqing was a bit fake. He was obviously full of hostility just now, but after turning his head, he seemed to have forgotten everything. Of course, this couldn't be criticized. A mature man should be a bit shrewd. This was a reflection of his charm. It was very compatible with Yen Xiaopei. Yen Xiaopei needed a mature and generous man to accept her past. A young and jealous boy couldn't control her. But Yang Yi didn't like Yu Chengqing. Compared to him, the talkative but sincere little fatty was much cuter. But it didn't matter. He was just a passerby. After Yang Yi bought the flowers, he happily went home. P.S. Regarding this chapter, Xiaohan didn't write a face-slapping plot, nor was it a trap. After all, Yu Chengqing didn't show off too much, and Yang Yi didn't have a conflict with him. They were all adults, so how could there be so many quarrels? He wrote a little more about Yen Xiaopei mainly to fulfill the wish of a book friend. He hoped that Yen Xiaopei could have a good ending. Xiaohan felt that this was a more open ending for Yen Xiaopei. Of course, Yu Chengqing wasn't Yen Xiaopei's future, but writing the character of Yu Chengqing meant that Yen Xiaopei had moved on. As a mature woman, she wasn't infatuated with a man to the point that she couldn't let go. The reality was the same. Yang Yi just had a good figure and was a bit more considerate, but 2 days of contact wasn't enough to make others fall head over heels in love with him. We don't know what Yen Xiaopei's future will be, but she is still working hard to pursue her love, so there is reason to believe that she will meet the right person, right? Chapter 129. Yang Yi carried a large bouquet of flowers as he walked around the campus, which attracted the attention of many students who stayed back during the holidays. However, they did not think that he was going to confess. Yang Yi was wearing a white t-shirt, shorts, and flip-flops. No matter how they looked at it, he did not look like he was going to confess. Moreover, Xiao Luo was very considerate as he separated the different types of flowers for Yang Yi and wrapped them into bundles with newspapers. Therefore, Yang Yi looked more like a delivery boy. Yang Yi did not know this, of course. He rushed back with big strides. In the end, just as he went upstairs, Yang Yi was stunned to see a few big and small vases in the living room. They had been washed, and the wet water stains extended from the bottom of the vases to the bathroom. A few black lines seemed to hang down Yang Yi's forehead. "Hey, you're back? What flowers did you buy?" Murphy rolled up her trousers, revealing her fair calves and playful feet. She walked out of the bathroom in slippers and was holding a freshly washed vase. When she saw Yang Yi, she smiled brightly. It was as if an iceberg had melted. That bright smile made Yang Yi forget what he wanted to say. "Mom, do you have any more?" She poked her head out of the bathroom. She was holding a black brush in her hand. It seemed that she had helped her mother a lot. No more. But don't come out first. Mom wants to wash your hands with soap, Murphy shouted. She put down the vase and quickly turned to go back to the bathroom. Yang Yi gently placed the bouquet of flowers on the dining table. Then, he turned to look at the vases and the water stains on the floor. He shook his head helplessly. Forget it. I'll just pretend that I didn't see anything. When everything is done, I'll clean it up slowly. Ever since there was a noisy little girl at home, Yang Yi's OCD had improved quite a bit. Of course, this improvement could be put in another way. He could choose to ignore it for a period of time. After a while, Murphy came out with a giggling she. You've just recovered from your fever, yet you're still soaking in so much water. Yang Yi reproached as he continued, You're going to have a relapse later. It's okay. I basically don't soak in the water. I use the shower head to wash. Moreover, the sun is scorching the water today. It won't affect it at all. Murphy laughed. She was indeed in a good mood. Perhaps it was because of the joy she felt when she was washing bottles with her daughter in the washroom. Now, she spoke with a smile. Murphy's smile was actually very beautiful, like 100 flowers blooming. It was even more beautiful than when she was ice cold. She was already an adult, so she should know how to take care of herself. Yang Yi didn't nag. On the contrary, she couldn't wait to interrupt. She took her father's hand and said, Papa, let me tell you, the water is really hot. Mom said that if she bathes in this water, she will be cooked. And just now, Mom asked she to wash her hands, but she didn't dare to. Yang Yi felt funny and touched the little girl's head. He listened to her story for a while before she stopped. Where did you get these vases? Yang Yi finally had a chance to ask the question in his heart. Don't you know? In that painting studio. Murphy raised her head proudly. Her casually tied ponytail was very youthful and pretty. There is a big box in it, which contains these beautiful vases. But they are not antiques. They used to grow flowers, but I don't know why they were put away later. Yang Yi understood. He had cleaned up the painting studio, but because it was rarely used, it was basically idle. He didn't want to open the things inside. After all, they were things left by Old Master Hu. But Murphy took them out now, so he let it go. Anyway, Old Master Hu also said that Yang Yi could use the things in the house freely. He could even change the furniture that he didn't want. It was best to keep them as much as possible. But Old Master Hu still understood that young people had their own aesthetic standards, so he only asked Yang Yi to take good care of this small building and keep his memory. These vases might have been used by Old Master Hu's wife in the past. Why did they put them away? Naturally, there was an answer to this question. But Yang Yi didn't intend to tell Murphy. He smiled and said, It doesn't matter. Since you found them, take them out and use them. But be careful not to break them. The main thing is that these are porcelain. They are easy to break. It's not good if the fragments cut she. Murphy nodded and said, In fact, I want to buy glass vases made of tempered glass. They are transparent and not easy to break. But these vases are beautiful. Look at the flowers and birds on them. They are so well painted. The colors are still so bright after being washed clean. Did you hear what Papa said? Murphy also educated she. These vases can't be touched casually. If you break them, Papa will be very angry. However, the little girl's big eyes were full of wisdom. She said unwillingly, Papa won't be angry. Papa won't be fierce to she. Only Mom will be fierce to you. Yang Yi couldn't help but laugh. Murphy was ashamed and angry. She pulled she over and pretended to slap the little girls but twice. Of course, she didn't use much strength. When did Mom become fierce to you? Yes, Papa never slaps she's butt. She pouted. She would rather die than surrender to the evil forces. Murphy wanted to arrange flowers. Yang Yi, who had nothing else to do, certainly wanted to help. According to Murphy's instructions, he unwrapped the flowers wrapped in the newspaper and took them to the bathroom to wash the mud off the roots. This was not enough. In order to keep the blooming flowers fresh, Murphy also had to cut off the leaves at the roots of the flowers. She even had to burn the roots of some flowers. In this way, the nutrients stored in them can be preserved to the greatest extent and it can prevent them from rotting. Murphy explained to Yang-yi. Of course, Murphy also had to cut the branches into different lengths according to the layers of the flower arrangement. Not all flowers were treated the same way. For example, daffodils had to be placed in light salt water, while lilies had to be placed in sugar water. Yang-yi didn't understand this at all. He could only sit with Shi and watch Murphy's performance with admiration. There were more details to the flower arrangement. Putting the big flowers at the bottom first and the small flowers at the top was just a small trick. The number of flowers of the same type in each layer must be an odd number. The number can be different, but the flowers of the same type with an odd number will form a more unique image. Murphy explained. The color combination is also very important. It depends on where the vase is placed. For more festive places, or your coffee shop, flowers with thick and warm colors will be used. The colors will be red, orange, and yellow. For example, we can use clean and comfortable neutral colors in the living room and bedroom at home. Murphy smiled and said, "Of course, not all colors are the same. Different types of color combination will have different feelings, especially when the contrast is sharp." She had just completed a small vase flower arrangement of lilies and daisies. Although it was not complicated, after the combination, the pure white of the lilies and the bright color of the daisies were combined organically. It was neither monotonous nor too lively. It looked like a work of art. Chapter 130. The flower arrangement itself was a kind of art. Especially when Yang-yi saw that Mo Fei had used a long and slender spring rhododendron, also known as Yingshan rhododendron, on a white, slender porcelain vase. It showed the tenacity of the bamboo that would never let go of the green mountain. It also showed the pride of the plum blossom that would never let go of the green mountain. He really had the urge to pay his respects to Murphy. The sparse shadow is horizontal and slanting, the water is clear and shallow, the hidden fragrance floats in the dusk of the moon. Yang-yi couldn't help but recite a poem. Murphy had never heard of this poem before, but it really matched the situation. Murphy couldn't help but ask in surprise, "You know how to write poems?" "It wasn't written by me." This poem was written by a poet named Lin Mo. After Yang-yi finished speaking, he finished reciting the poem. The other lines weren't as artistic as this one. Murphy also liked the line that matched the situation. She recited it twice and asked Yang-yi to find a pen and paper to write it down. In the middle, she asked curiously, "Lin Mo? Why haven't I heard of this person before?" Yang-yi had learned calligraphy before. Although he didn't delve into it as deeply as he did music, Murphy felt that his handwriting was very methodical. Every stroke was bold and powerful. It was very beautiful. "It's an unknown poet in Jiangnan. I used to see this poem in his former residence, but I forgot where." Yang-yi made up a lie and told Murphy. This Lin Mo was a poet from the Northern Song dynasty in his previous life. Naturally, he didn't exist in this world. However, Yang-yi didn't think of taking his poem as his own. After all, he really didn't know how to write poems. He only knew how to recite them, so it would be easy to expose him. Murphy didn't care. She happily stuck the 2 lines of the poem that Yang-yi wrote on the craft paper onto the white porcelain vase. This time, the artistic conception was even more profound. After dealing with the flowers, Yang-yi and Murphy were busy the entire afternoon. She had long lost her patience. She ran to the side to watch TV. "What's left is for us to arrange these flowers. Let me see where to place them." Murphy got up and comfortably stretched her body as she spoke. This stretch stretched her cotton short-sleeved home t-shirt, revealing a smooth lower abdomen. Coincidentally, Yang-yi's line of sight followed and caught a glimpse of the spring scenery. Murphy didn't notice. After she put down her arm, she slowly walked to the front of the TV and gestured, "You can put our carnations and calla lilies in the TV cabinet." But you have to stay a little further away, or else you'll be affected by the TV's radiation. The corners of Yang Yi's eyes twitched. He wanted to say something but stopped himself. Hey, Mom, move away. All of you, block him. Cece suddenly yelled out, unwilling to comply. The little girl was watching TV attentively. She couldn't take her eyes off the screen, but someone ran over and blocked her view of the TV. At first, she wasn't angry. She just silently waved her little hand, as if she could push her mom away. However, Murphy didn't move. Instead, when she changed her position, she coincidentally turned around and continued to block in front of she. How could the little girl not complain? She jumped off the sofa and tried to push her mother's butt. All right, Mom is wrong. Mom, move away. Murphy smiled as she comforted her daughter. However, she didn't have time to care about them. She was watching the cartoon. The plot just happened to be tense. The little girl looked back with every step and dawdled for a long time before returning to the sofa. Murphy directed Yang Yi to arrange the flowers next to the TV cabinet and said, "Then, you can put lilies and daisies on the table because the vase is smaller." At this time, Yang Yi looked at the TV and the flowers. Finally, he couldn't help but say, "Murphy, I think, shouldn't we put another pot? That vase is the same as this one. Wouldn't it look better if we put a pot on the left and right?" Murphy walked over and studied it. However, she shook her head and rejected Yang Yi's suggestion. "No, it doesn't look good." "Why?" Yang Yi didn't understand. "Because it's close to the balcony. The wind is very strong at night, and the flowers are rotten," Murphy explained. "Then we can close the window." Yang Yi still wanted to fight for it. "It doesn't look good closing the window. It's next to the curtains. What about taking down the curtains?" Yang Yi made a very unreliable suggestion. Murphy finally realized that something was wrong. She turned her head and stared at Yang Yi with her beautiful eyes as if they could talk. Yang Yi felt a little uncomfortable. She looked around again. She looked at the symmetrical sofa and then looked at the dining table that was always arranged with 4 chairs even though there were only 3 people eating in the house. Finally, when Yang Yi was fidgeting, Murphy said, "Hey, Yang Yi, are you a Virgo?" Yang Yi was immediately unwilling. He said, "How can that be? How can I be a Virgo?" The date on his ID card wasn't a Virgo. Yang Yi didn't know what constellation he was. He was an orphan in his previous life and didn't know the date of his birth. Of course, he didn't believe in constellations. However, when he thought about how many people on the internet were defaming Virgo, Yang Yi felt that it couldn't be any better. So, he firmly denied it. "That's true. You were born in December." Murphy saw some information about Yang Yi. "But why are you the same as a Virgo? Do you have mysophobia?" Murphy asked. "I don't have mysophobia," Yang Yi complained. Finally, under Murphy's gaze, he sighed and said, "Okay, I just have a slight obsessive-compulsive disorder. It's not mysophobia." "Oh, right, obsessive-compulsive disorder. I got it mixed up. But, is it really slight?" Murphy felt that teasing Yang Yi was very interesting. She put her hands behind her back and deliberately pretended to be strong. The corner of her mouth couldn't help but reveal a smile. Yang Yi finally gave in. "Okay, I'll do it. You have the final say. I really don't care." "Okay, I won't tease you any more." Murphy stepped forward and patted Yang Yi's shoulder. She smiled and said, "Go and move the flowers." "What?" "Move the pot of flowers that you said and put it on the other side of the TV. Do you want me to move it?" Murphy blinked at Yang Yi with an innocent look. "But, isn't that ugly?" Yang Yi was very happy, but he still asked. "Now I've changed my mind." Murphy didn't want to admit that she wanted to take care of Yang Yi's feelings. She snorted, turned around and walked away. She left a sentence. "It seems that it's quite nice to put it symmetrically like this." Yang Yi was overjoyed. He quickly moved the flowers in the same vase. In the process, he inevitably blocked Shi-Shi's line of sight. What's wrong with you adults? Shi-Shi unhappily pouted. Yang-E moved the vase and put it in the position that he had already thought of. He looked back. He. All of a sudden, his heart felt comfortable. Yang-E was in a good mood. He walked over, held Shi-Shi's little face, and kissed his daughter's forehead. However, Shi-Shi was not happy. Her father's hand covered her eyes. I can't see, the little girl complained. Chapter 131. Although Murphy went on a vacation, as Murphy's agent, Mo Xiaowan didn't have a vacation. She still had to go back to the company to deal with Murphy's work and arrange her future itinerary. However, these days, there were more and more people gossiping. Some people, after half a month, don't even make a move, and still say that they have collected enough songs to make an album. On the corridor to the pantry, Mo Xiaowan could hear someone deliberately raising their voice. Isn't that right? Now that she probably can't get any songs, and she's afraid of the hardships and fatigue, I heard that she asked for leave to go home and sleep. Then wouldn't she never be able to raise her head again? Is she willing to stay on the second and third lines like this? Who knows? Anyway, she's old, and she's still giving birth. Cough that, She still wants to be a star, dream on. I understand, didn't Sister Ling give a gag order? He. If it was some time ago, Mo Xiaowan might have quarreled with the other party, but now, Mo Xiaowan learned to ignore it. However, Mo Xiaojuan's temper was still there. She nodded with a smile on the outside, but in her heart, she was fiercely thinking, damn it, a bunch of little bitches. When my sister counterattacks, see if I don't tear your mouths apart. Mo Xiaowan still had some friends in the company, such as Xiao Ai and some girls who had no desires and didn't like to fight. She had a good relationship with them. In the pantry, Mo Xiaowan met a good female colleague who was eating fruit. Hey, Xiaowan, do you want to raise a cat? The female colleague saw Mo Xiaowan and asked excitedly. Mo Xiaowan shook her head and smiled. No, look at how busy I am. I don't even have time to find a boyfriend. How would I have time to raise a little master? Do you think I'm Xiao Ai? I'm talking about Xiao Ai. The female colleague said to Mo Xiaowan, don't you know? Xiao Ai is going to give the cat away. Give the cat away? How could this be? Xiao Ai loves cats as much as her life. Mo Xiaowan asked in surprise. The female colleague nodded, then shook her head and said, not all of them, but the kittens have to be given to others to raise. The situation is like this. Mo Xiaowan finally understood what had happened from the other party's gossip. It turned out that Xiao Ai's parents had introduced Xiao Ai to a man who was said to be very good. In the end, Xiao Ai suddenly remembered that the door from the bedroom to the balcony was not closed properly. Big Cat, on the other hand, was fine. It could leap over roofs and vault over walls as it pleased. But she was afraid that the curious kitten would climb to the balcony and fall down. Although it was only the third floor, such a big kitten would become a meat patty if it fell down. Did he really think that cats had 9 lives? Therefore, she refused to have a deep conversation with her blind date and hurried home to check on her kitten. Doesn't she know to come back together, ask the other party to wait downstairs, and then close the door before continuing the date? Mo Xiaowan asked incredulously. Who knows? Anyway, that man is not very good. He even complained to Xiao Ai's parents. The female colleague curled her lips and said, let's not talk about Xiao Ai and that man. Anyway, this blind date was over. Xiao Ai's parents were furious and ordered Xiao Ai to quickly give away all the kittens. It was good enough for a girl to raise 1 cat, but raising a litter? Were they going to raise them as children? Did she want a boyfriend? Was she going to die alone? This was the logic of the older generation. Xiao Ai had no choice but to contact people everywhere, trying to find someone to entrust her litter of kittens to. She was not willing to give it to ordinary people because she was afraid that the kittens would meet someone unworthy, now she's in a terrible fix. The female colleague sighed and said. She also felt that Xiao Ai was pitiful, so she helped her ask around. Mo Xiaozhuan's eyes lit up. Murphy had been at Yang Yi's house for a few days. Except for the first day, which was stiff because of the fever, she spent the rest of the time very happily. Arranging flowers, asking Yang Yi to draw a cartoon version of her portrait, denouncing her father with she, and so on. These were all trivial things in life, but the days were very comfortable. The smile on her face gradually increased, and even the evening walks were as pleasant as traveling. Today, Murphy remembered that Yang Yi's coffee shop had not been open for the past few days. Moreover, she also wanted to check if Yang Yi had fulfilled his promise to leave her a shelf to put her records and accessories. Therefore, under the pretext of urging Yang Yi to operate normally, the family went downstairs to the corner coffee shop. She usually didn't notice it, but today, when Yang Yi came out of the shop with a signboard and hung it up, Mo Fei finally noticed the name of the shop. Ah, Yang Yi, why is your coffee shop also called a coffee shop on the corner? It's very similar to the song Long Time No See by Chen Yijie. Oh, really? I also like this song, so I changed it later. Yang Yi said calmly. Really? Murphy was skeptical. She muttered. Why do I seem to remember that this sign is similar to the one before? However, she didn't want to delve into it. Moreover, Shishi's call diverted her attention. Wow, Mom. She walked in first. When she saw the grand piano in the shop, her eyes lit up. She ran back, took her mother's hand, and said as if she was presenting a treasure, Mom, I'll show you something. What is it? Murphy was taken to the piano by her daughter. It's this. Papa said this is a piano. Shishi was worried that her mother would misunderstand like her, so she took the initiative to explain, but it doesn't eat steel. Yang Yi, you bought a piano? Murphy was surprised at first, and then she was puzzled by her daughter. What do you mean it doesn't eat steel? Yes, I suddenly felt that it would be good to put a piano in a coffee shop, so I bought it. Yang Yi couldn't help but want to laugh. He told Murphy about the day when Shishi compared the electronic piano with the piano. Haha, Shishi, you silly girl. Murphy was amused by her daughter. I'm not stupid. I can play the piano. The little girl sat down on the small stool in front of the piano with her chest out, and asked her father to open the cover for her. The little girl stretched out a finger, poked the white key, and then poked the black key. Well, in her opinion, if she could make a sound, then she could play the piano. Get up, Mom will play for you. See what it means to play the piano. Mo Fei's memory of learning piano when she was a child was stimulated by her daughter's lovely performance, so she said excitedly. Okay, Shishi wants to see Mom play the piano. She jumped down happily. Yang Yi also watched with interest, watching Murphy elegantly sitting in front of the piano. He heard Murphy sing a lot of songs, and even watched some videos of Murphy's early performances, but he has never seen Murphy play the piano. Ding ding dong dong. Murphy played a string of notes from left to right on the piano, and then she began to play. It was one of her old songs. Yang Yi recognized it when he heard the prelude, and said, Tender memories? Murphy turned to look at Yang Yi, smiled, and nodded. Chapter 132. So I can't let go of this memory. Smiling in the wind with your gentleness, so familiar. Just like snuggling together under the moonlight. Murphy played steadily and hummed softly. The low but pure piano sound, accompanied by her clear and affectionate singing, echoed in the coffee shop. She was still okay, she just felt that Mom was very good, but Yang Yi was completely intoxicated. He couldn't help but close his eyes, leaving only his ears to feel the rhythm of the music in this space. Ah, where's the applause? Shishi, where's your applause? After Murphy finished playing, her voice made Yang Yi come back to his senses. Mom is the best. She giggled and threw herself into her mother's arms. Yang Yi was also at the side, smiling, gently clapping his hands to offer his late applause. By the way, Yang Yi, you didn't make it clear just now, why did you buy such a grand piano and put it in the shop? At this moment, Murphy gently stroked the logo on the piano and said in surprise, "It's Theodore's grand piano." On TV, when you see other people's coffee shops, there will usually be a piano. It will look very good. So I thought about it and added one in the shop. It just so happened that last month's royalties were paid, so I have some money left. Yang Yi explained simply. Murphy didn't delve into it. She was also used to spending money extravagantly. She didn't think that Yang Yi bought a piano and put it in the shop was wasteful. She just asked in amusement, "Do you know how to play the piano? You didn't buy it back just to wait for me to play it for you, right?" Perhaps it would have a different pink effect. However, how could Yang Yi be this kind of person who would say such sweet words? He calmly shook his head and said, "Of course not, I also want to learn how to play the piano. I used to know a little bit, and I like it." "You can play the piano? Come on and show us," Murphy said excitedly. It's time to show a little bit of new skills, although Yang Yi didn't intend to show off too much at once. "What are you playing?" Yang Yi sat on the piano and asked with a smile. "I want to play too." She was overjoyed. She ran to her father's side and snuggled up to him. Anyway, the bench was quite long, so Yang Yi didn't care. "What else do you want to play?" Murphy was a bit speechless. "Don't tell me, your piano skills are not bad now?" Yang Yi didn't say anything. He just followed Mo Fei's example and played a melody from left to right on the piano, crossing his left and right hands. Although it seemed that he was not as skilled as Mo Fei, and he even missed one or two notes, Mo Fei was still surprised to see a trace of clue. Yang Yi really learned how to play the piano. Other things aside, at the very least, the sitting posture, the angle of the hand and elbow, the height of the wrist and the strength of the fingers playing the piano were all just right. Without formal learning and a period of hard practice, it would be very difficult to do it. However, Murphy now has a fairly good ability to accept Yang Yi's skills from time to time. She didn't question, but helped Yang Yi think of a song to play. She suddenly had an idea. She turned around, went to her exclusive shelf, and took a small booklet. That was also the sheet music that was given to her in her previous platinum album, Same Love as Missouri Road. Mo Fei excitedly turned to the first page, pointed to her song, and said, "You play this song, Same Love as Strangers." This is a bit difficult." Yang Yi scratched his head. She asked him to play the whole song right from the start. Yang Yi felt a little nervous, worried that Murphy would notice something. "It's okay, take your time. If you don't play well, I'll teach you," Murphy comforted. Of course, Yang Yi didn't know that the reason why Murphy was so proactive was because she was very happy to see Yang Yi's new situation in music. In the past, she hoped that Yang Yi could have a common language with her. But in the past, Yang Yi only made her angry. How could he be in the mood to talk about music? No, in the past, Yang Yi didn't like decadent music. Now that it was rare for Yang Yi to show off, Mo Fei seemed to see hope. She decided that even if Yang Yi played badly, she would praise him well and never dampen his enthusiasm. On this side, she was still snuggling up to her father. She didn't want to leave, because it was more interesting to watch from such a close distance. Even when she saw her father raise his hand and put it on the piano, the little girl was interested and stretched out her long and thin arms to press on the piano twice. "Do you want to play a duet with your father?" Yang Yi smiled and gently touched Shi's little head. She naturally didn't understand the meaning of a duet, but she cleverly nodded her head vigorously. "In the future, Mom will teach you how to play. Come down, now it's your papa's time to perform," Murphy advised. She naughtily shook her little head, squeezed into her father's arms, and crisply said, "No. It's okay, our she is very obedient. After Dad starts to play, she won't disturb Dad. Promise Dad that you'll be obedient and don't reach out, okay?" Yang Yi stretched out his big fist. It was easier to accept her father's words. The little girl obediently nodded her head. She knew her father's habit of making promises. She giggled, stretched out her little pink fist, and touched her father's big fist. Yang Yi liked the song Strangers very much, but it was indeed his first time playing it, so it was inevitable that he was unfamiliar with it. However, Yang Yi also added a gap where he had to read a line of music before he could play it. This made the rhythm even slower, and the melody couldn't be coherent. Murphy didn't care at all. She felt that Yang Yi could play a small part after reading the music score, which was enough to surprise her. Therefore, she sincerely praised, "You played very well. You just need to be a little familiar with the key positions. Try to be able to play without lowering your head. It would be best if you could look at the music score while playing." Of course, Murphy also gave a lot of guidance. She would tell Yang Yi which notes should be tapped and played quickly. She would also tell Yang Yi which notes should be played in series. Although Yang Yi didn't necessarily know less than Murphy, looking at the good teacher Murphy, he still obediently accepted her guidance. "You have to practice harder. There's a piano at home, so you must play better. At least practice the music scores of my songs." Murphy didn't seem to care. She patted Yang Yi's shoulder and said, "When I have a concert in the future, I'll ask you to accompany me." Yang Yi smiled helplessly. This kind of feeling of a lonely master being encouraged by a non-professional amateur was really a bit strange. However, what he didn't know was that Mo Fei was serious about it. She really hoped that one day, she could invite Yang Yi to perform on her stage and perform with her. In this way, he might be able to understand my work and my dream, right? Chapter 133. So, one last question. What kind of person is Mr. Mu Ziyang? In Shanghai, a famous talk show, Jixin Interview, created by the famous host Luo Xin, was in the middle of recording a new episode. The popular artist that Luo Xin had invited this time was Chan Yijie, a popular artist from Harbor City who is currently very popular in China. We all know that Mu Ziyang is a very mysterious songwriter. Not only did he hide his personal information on the Copyright Protection Association's website, but he also kept the other songs that he created confidential, Luo Xin explained to the camera. She was close to 50 years old, but she took good care of herself. She was still radiant, graceful, and intellectual on the stage, which made her gain many male fans of different ages. Such a talented songwriter can still keep his inner peace and doesn't want to be disturbed by the outside world. It's really rare in our entertainment circle. So, we are very curious. What kind of person is he? Luo Xin smiled. Chen Yijie scratched his stylish hair. He was a person who didn't care much about his personal image, so his hair became a little messy as he scratched it. He wondered if the stylist backstage would want to beat him to death. How should I put it? I received Mr. Mu Ziyang's request, and he said that I can't disclose his personal information to the public, Chen Yijie said awkwardly. It's okay. We can talk about some insignificant information within an acceptable range. It's also to satisfy the wishes of so many fans of Long Time No See, right? Luo Xin smiled. The invited audience were all students from the nearby Film and Television Academy. They could satisfy their wishes of watching the show closely, and of course, they had to fulfill their responsibilities. So, they didn't hesitate to shout, "Yes." Okay. Chen Yijie cupped his hands and smiled. Since I'm on Luo Xion's show, I have to give something. How about this, you ask me, and I'll tell you what I can. If I can't, I'll sing a song to apologize, okay? Actually, these were all communicated before the recording of the show, and Chen Yijie was just following the script. Okay, Mu Ziyang is a teacher, so there is no doubt that he is a man. But please allow me to make a small guess. Judging from his lyrics, the emotions he expresses are quite deep and full of the sorrowful charm of a mature man. Of course, Eason's acting was outstanding too. Luo Xin smiled. I guess Mr. Mu Ziyang is a middle-aged man. Am I right? Chen Yijie shook his head with a smile and said, No, Mr. Mu Ziyang is a young man. She's much younger than me. Oh, young man. Then his fans are also very lucky. Luo Xan pretended to be exaggerating, which caused the female fans below the stage to cheer, as if they were very happy to hear that Mu Xiang was a young man. He's relatively young, but he's also a very mature person. You can tell from his lyrics, Chen Yijie added. Is Mu Xiang handsome? In front of the camera, Luo Xian acted like a little fangirl and asked with sparkling eyes. Handsome. Compared with me, he's more handsome. Chen Yijie answered without hesitation, and then he smiled. Oh, Yisan, don't belittle yourself. You're the most handsome man in my heart. Luo Xian also smiled. The effect of this show was perfect. To be honest, Chen Yijie really had nothing to do with being handsome. Compared with the 4 heavenly kings in Harbor City, he got to the throne step by step with his singing. When he said that others were more handsome than him, everyone laughed tacitly. By the way, I still don't understand. Since he's a handsome and talented young man, why did he choose to hide his identity instead of choosing to debut at such a good time? We all know that in fact, there are too many young people who want to enter the entertainment circle, but they are not as popular as Mu Xiang now. Naturally, they won't be favored by the entertainment companies, Luo Xian said. At this moment, the audience below the stage was silent and looked at Chen Yijie closely. They were also the young people who wanted to enter the entertainment circle but had no way to do so, as Luo Xian said. Is it because he was hurt by a love affair? Luo Xian asked. The song Long Time No See seems to tell a very sad story of a broken love. As for the love affair, it's more personal. I didn't ask Mr. Mu Xiang. But as for why he didn't choose this path, I think it's because everyone has his own ambition. Chen Yijie thought for a while and said, when we met in his shop, Mr. Mu Xiang gave me the feeling that he was a hermit. Sorry, I need to say it in Cantonese. He's a great hermit who hides in the city. Maybe his past is not simple. Maybe he used to be magnificent in other places. But now, Mr. Mu Xiang enjoys his own peace and the happiness accompanied by music. Luo Xian was indeed a famous host. She immediately found the secret in Chen Yijie's words. She suddenly asked, his shop? What shop did Mr. Mu Xiang open in Jiang City? He opened a shop in Jiang City. Oh. Chen Yijie was just expressing his feelings, and now he almost blurted out the answer to Luo Xian's question. Fortunately, he came to his senses quickly and immediately covered his mouth. Luo Xian, you cheated. You can't continue to reveal this. Luo Xian made an annoyed expression. She spread out her hands and said to the camera, Mu Xiang's fans, I can only help you this much. Mu Xiang has a shop in Jiang City. If you look carefully, you might find it. Well, since you can't say it, Yisan, you have to sing as punishment. Luo Xian laughed. That's not a problem. What do you want to hear? Chen Yijie was also free and easy. He stood up from the sofa with the microphone. Needless to say, the audience below the stage were all shouting, Long Time No See. After all, Chen Yijie's new album only had one Mandarin song that everyone could understand. The scene changed, and the sofa for the interview was removed, revealing a wide stage. Under the brilliant arrangement of the lighting engineer, it also presented the appearance of a small karaoke hall. The surrounding accompaniment sounded, and Luo Xian swayed along with the audience below the stage who stood up. I've come to your city. Chen Yijie stood in the middle of the stage and sang with deep emotion. At this time, it was already past 11 o'clock at night. Shishi had already fallen asleep. Yang Yi turned off the computer and walked out of the study after moving some manuscripts as usual. The living room was still brightly lit. Yang Yi walked over and saw a beautiful figure standing alone on the big balcony. Chapter 134. Murphy stood on the balcony. Her eyes were somewhat blurred as she looked at the Grand Canal with only a few lights on the shore. The night wind blew her loose hair, but she didn't care, she just silently thought about her worries. Suddenly, a weight came from her shoulder, A coat was draped on her shoulders that were a little cold from the river wind. Murphy looked back and saw Yang Yi's angular face. Although he was facing the light, he was still so familiar and handsome. "Why aren't you resting?" Yang Yi walked to Murphy's side. He also leaned on the railing and leisurely leaned on it. "Can't sleep. Maybe I had a lot of fun playing the piano today?" Murphy smiled and said, "When two people are together, it is easy to have an awkward situation." Yang Yi himself is not a person who is good at chatting with others, but he is better at listening. And Murphy is also an unsociable person. The two of them are like a closed jar, talking suddenly. The atmosphere was very awkward. After a while, Murphy seemed to have made up her mind. She said to Yang Yi, "You know about my new album, right?" Yang Yi hesitated. He didn't know how to answer. "New album? Which new album? Is it the comeback album that was released before? Or is it the new album that is now preparing?" If it is the latter, Yang Yi felt that if he wasn't Mu Xiang, it would be difficult to get the news that Murphy is preparing a new album. "The situation is very bad?" Yang Yi hesitated for a moment, and chose the former. Murphy nodded. Her expression was calm, but there was bitterness hidden in the depths of her voice. "It is the worst album since my debut." Yang Yi was silent for a while, then said, "I can see that you have been under a lot of pressure these 2 months." However, Murphy didn't want to complain to him. She has long been used to bearing the burden alone, and then moving forward with the burden. Mo Fei calmly said to Yang Yi, "Now there's a chance. My fan wrote a song for me, and it's very well written. If I don't say his name, I'm afraid it'll be difficult for you to guess who he is." Yang Yi's expression didn't change, but he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "It's me. Do I even need to guess?" However, Murphy looked at the expressionless Yang Yi and felt uneasy. She had been worried about this problem before. "Are you angry?" "Ah." Murphy's question came out of nowhere, and Yang Yi was confused. Murphy pursed her lips and whispered, "You're angry." "What?" Yang Yi's head was now full of question marks, as if it was being pulled by a string, a series of questions popping out. Murphy felt a little wronged, but she didn't show it. She just said in a low voice, "Don't mind it so much." Although he's a male fan, he said that he only wanted to write a song for me because he likes my voice. Moreover, he is also the composer of the song Long Time No See, that you like, sung by Chen Yijie. His name is Mu Xiang. Mu Xiang? Yang Yi pretended to be surprised, and then smiled. "He wrote a song for you, why would I care? This is a good thing." Yang Yi was still worried that Murphy would think too much, so he helped to persuade Murphy. "The song written by Mu Xiang is very good. You should be happy that such a great person wrote a song for you. Your next album will definitely sell at the platinum level like Chen Yijie's." Murphy was a little confused by her own thoughts and Yang Yi's reaction. "That's not right. Shouldn't Yang Yi care a lot?" Murphy remembered that not long after she told Yang Yi that she was going to make a comeback, she participated in a program and sang a song with another male singer. As a result, she sent Shi over to play with her father on the weekend. Yang Yi's face was dark, and he was even fiercer than his usual stern face. "The lyrics of the song he wrote for me may be a bit ambiguous." Murphy hesitated for a moment, but still said it very frankly. Since Murphy said so, Yang Yi had to follow her words and asked, "How is it ambiguous?" "I'll sing it for you, but please don't mind it. He said that these songs were not written for me, but for the woman he loves. It's just that they are suitable for me to sing, so he hopes that I can sing them well." Mo Fei's heart was beating like a drum, so she gave Yang Yi a heads up first. Yang Yi nodded gently. He was quite looking forward to it. He wanted to know how good Murphy would sound when she sang the song he wrote for her. There is no precaution at all, and there is no trace of concern. In the gentle night wind, Murphy's ethereal voice rose gently, like a nightingale written by Chekhov. When the singer gently opened her beak and chirped, the entire forest was filled with her crisp and sweet voice. Even the accompaniment band was so excited that they forgot to play. They all held their breaths and listened to her in silence. The nightingale's voice was full of strength and tenderness. Yang Yi listened with bated breath. His eyes fell on Murphy's face, but they seemed to be unfocused. It also seemed that he was so focused that Murphy was a little nervous. Finally, she finished singing a part. Murphy couldn't help but ask Yang-yi, "What do you think?" "Ah." Yang-yi came back to his senses and said subconsciously, "It's good, but there are a few lines that weren't handled well." "Huh?" Murphy was also a little confused by Yang-yi's answer. For example, the line, "From my world, there is no news," you sang a little bit too slowly. I think it might be better if the rhythm is faster. Also, the line, "Although you and I are strangers, passers-by, we can still feel each other's eyes, a heartbeat." Do you find it very rhythmic? You have to sing this rhythmic feeling. Yang-yi compared Murphy's singing with the original song. There were really a lot of differences. Although Murphy's voice had a plainer and sad charm than the original song, but in terms of details, Murphy had not been polished many times. Murphy's interest was aroused by Yang-yi. She pulled Yang-yi and let Yang-yi sing all the things that he mentioned just now, so that she could feel how to change the rhythm. In the end, Murphy had to be convinced by Yang-yi's interpretation of the original song. She said with emotion, "You are still very talented in music. It's a pity that there is a problem with your voice. You have never sung before, so you don't know the correct way of speaking and breathing rhythm. From tomorrow onwards, you have to practice with me." Murphy said seriously, "I want to teach you how to sing." Yang-yi knew his own weaknesses. In his previous life, his voice was destroyed when he was young, and his voice was like sandpaper, so he had never thought of learning how to sing. In this life, it was even more impossible for his predecessor to learn how to sing. "That's good, but I still have to teach she swordsmanship in the morning." Yang-yi scratched his head. "You still have to wait for her to wake up. Before she wakes up, we will have already finished practicing." Murphy said, "I want to go running with you, and then practice my voice." Finally, they found something that the two of them could do together. Wait, Murphy just realized that she had gone off topic. "No, I was asking you, what do you think of this song?" "It's very good. Mu Xiang wrote a good song, and you sang it even better." Yang-yi praised. "That's not what I meant." Murphy stamped her feet anxiously and said, "Don't you think that the lyrics are very ambiguous? But don't take it to heart, because Mu Xiang himself said that these songs were written for the woman he loves, so don't misunderstand. If you still don't believe me, I can show you his email. Do you still want to see it? These are all written by me." Yang-yi didn't know whether to laugh or cry at this straightforward girl. He simply pressed his hands on Murphy's shoulders through the jacket and turned her body towards him. Looking at her panicked eyes, he smiled and said, "Listen carefully, Comrade Murphy, I'm telling you, I really don't care. I'm very happy that Mu Xiang wrote songs for you. And I'm even happier that you sang for me. I hope that you can continue to work hard and sing happily on your stage. So, don't worry and use it." Yang-yi looked at Murphy gently. Murphy was about 1.7 meters tall, but in front of Yang-yi, she was as petite as a little bird. Being looked at by Yang-yi in such a domineering way, she couldn't help blushing. Suddenly, as if there was an awkward silence, the balcony became quiet again. But the atmosphere became a little charming. Yang-yi forgot to let go of her hand. Mo Fei, who was right in front of him, was as delicate as a purple-white bellflower. Her eyes were like a dodging deer, and her red lips were like petals that were slightly opened, making his mouth dry. His heart was already restless, but he was afraid to disturb the beauty. You. After a long time, the two almost spoke at the same time. "You first," Yang-yi said. "I want to go back to sleep, I'm so sleepy." Murphy's voice was as thin as silk. She lowered her head and didn't dare to look at Yang-yi's burning eyes. That's what I mean." Although Yang-yi was a little disappointed, he immediately let go of his hand and said softly, "It's late, you should rest. You said you had to wake up early tomorrow." Murphy shyly lowered her head and walked to the living room, but stopped and turned her head. She looked at Yang-yi and bit her lower lip. "Tonight, thank you." not sure if she was thanking Yang Yi for giving her the jacket, or thanking Yang Yi for his understanding. Chapter 135. However, Murphy didn't practice singing with Yang Yi the next day because she slept too late last night and couldn't get up in the morning. Yang Yi didn't wake her up either. He even complained about it later. Murphy still had something to do today. She had to go back to the company and bring back the song that Mu Ziyang wrote for her. Then, she would practice singing with Yang Yi at Yang Yi's house. Although it was a bit stupid to practice singing during a vacation, Mo Fei felt that it was better to practice singing with Yang Yi instead of wasting his life doing nothing every day. It could speed up the progress of the new album in the future, and it could also cultivate the relationship between the two of them. It was two birds with one stone. The owner of the coffee shop, Yang Yi, didn't want to open the shop at all. He thought that he had nothing to do anyway, so he drove his tyrannical wolf and sent Murphy back to the company. She was happy because she could go for a ride in the car again. But something was wrong. Because her mother was sitting in the car, her father didn't open the window for her. The little girl felt that something was missing from the ride. Tyrannical Wolf's engine is a military standard, and it is full of power. Yang Yi drives on the ring highway, speeding all the way. In Cici's excited cries, they arrive at Qianmei's building. Shi, be good and wait for Mom downstairs with Papa. Before Murphy got out of the car, she kissed Shi on the cheek. Mom, I want to go up too. She said with a pout. No, your papa's car can't enter the parking lot. There are too many people outside. Mom can't take Shi up. Murphy explained, Mom will go and come back quickly. However, she wasn't very confident. Although it wasn't very troublesome to bring down a stack of printed paper, Mo Shaowan had mysteriously told her over the phone that there would be a surprise. She didn't know if it would delay her time. Okay then. She nodded obediently. Then I want Papa to tell me a story. Okay, but you are not allowed to talk about Journey to the West. Murphy laughed. Journey to the West can only be told when Mom is here. Mom also wants to hear it. Murphy wasn't too interested in Yang Yi's other fairy tales. After all, they were still a little childish. However, Journey to the West was different. Murphy fell in love with it after listening to Shi's story. Not only did she pester Yang Yi to tell her the earlier parts of the story, but she was also more anxious than Shi to urge him to update the novel. He wouldn't let her do this or that. Shi pursed her lips in grievance. It's okay. Daddy will tell you another story. Yang Yi quickly turned back to comfort his daughter. He smiled and said, Daddy has many good stories. However, after Murphy went upstairs, Yang Yi told his daughter the story for a while before he was interrupted by a phone call. It was from Mr. Liu. Yang Yi smiled apologetically at his daughter and picked up the phone. Lu Sheng, is there any progress in my fairy tale book? To be honest, Yang Yi was still looking forward to the publication of this fairy tale book. After all, the previous two popular books were basically carried over by him. As for this fairy tale book, 80% of the story was created by himself based on the fairy tales of his previous life. Would it be popular? What kind of sales would it get? Yang Yi didn't know in his heart. However, it was this unpredictability that made Yang Yi look forward to it. However, Mr. Liu did not want to talk to Yang Yi about this today. He said apologetically, I'm sorry, Yang Yi. Your book is still in the typesetting process. It's estimated that it will take half a month. However, please rest assured that our publishing house values your book very much. She was already a little impatient. She shifted her little butt in the back seat, moving here and there for a while. However, she was still quite obedient and did not disturb her father's work. Mr. Liu was long-winded and finally got to the point. I called to disturb you today because a big director came to our publishing house and asked for your contact information. He wants to talk to you about the film and television copyright of Soldier's Assault and Drawing Sword. Yang Yi was still very interested in this news. After all, he knew that these two books had great potential for adaptation. In his previous life, needless to say, Drawing Sword won the ratings of Central TV that year. On the other hand, Soldier's Assault caused a sensation. Not only was the TV series discussed all over the country, but it also received generous returns in terms of ratings and awards. Of course, a good script could also be made into a bad film, such as the current fresh meat version of Drawing Sword. The selection of actors was very important, and so was the director's skills. Yang Yi did not want these two classics to be made into bad films. "Who's this big director?" Yang Yi asked. "Oh, look at me. I forgot to tell you. It's director Chan Fengchen," Mr. Liu said excitedly. Dramas like Capital City, The Age of War, and Flying Tiger in Snowfield were all filmed by him. Yang Yi was not as excited as Mr. Liu because he had never heard of this name, nor had he watched these TV dramas. After all, his predecessor almost never watched TV dramas and only watched the news. "Give him my address and contact information, and ask him to come to Rivertown to find me," Yang Yi said calmly. He decided to get to know Chan Fengchen first and see how good his directing skills were. According to Mr. Liu's introduction, it seemed that he had directed many war dramas, which might be in line with Yang Yi's choice. However, Mr. Liu was a little shocked by Yang Yi's words. "You're asking Director Chen to come to Rivertown to find you?" "Yes. Is there a problem?" Yang Yi was puzzled. "That's Director Chan Fengchen." Mr. Liu swallowed his saliva and whispered, "He's not just any small-time director." Yes. Although Old Master Chen was in his 60s, with his qualifications, no matter who it was in the entertainment industry, they would have to respectfully greet him as an old senior when they met. After being in the industry for so many years, not only did he teach a lot of disciples, but his TV dramas had made so many celebrities famous. How could Yang Yi have the nerve to ask Old Master Chen to meet him in Rivertown? If others found out, wouldn't he be drowned in their spittle? "How old did you say he was?" Yang Yi frowned and asked. "In his early 60s? Mr. Liu didn't remember clearly. In fact, Yang Yi was quite disgusted by Mr. Liu's persuasion. He wasn't afraid of any authority. No matter how strong his background was or how bad his temper was, he wouldn't bow his head. However, the old man had another opinion. Yang Yi had always respected the virtuous and talented old men, just like how he was respectful to Old Master Hu. "How about this? You tell him that I really have something to do this month and can't leave. In September, I'll visit him in the capital. We'll talk about the business later. As for the etiquette, we young people have to have a clear conscience," Yang Yi said calmly. As soon as he put down his phone, Yang Yi heard Shi, who was leaning against the car window and looking out, exclaim happily, "Mom is back." Murphy came back with a big corrugated box in her arms. He didn't know what was inside, but her usually cold face was full of smiles. Chapter 136. Yang Yi, Shi, I have a surprise for you. Mo Fei stood outside the car with a corrugated box in her arms. Her bright eyes and the smile that revealed a few neat and white teeth dazzled Yang Yi a little. "What's the surprise?" Shi blinked her big eyes and asked expectantly. Mo Shaowan came out from the back and pushed Murphy. She shouted, get in the car first. "Sister, you're standing in public like this. Aren't you afraid of being photographed?" Murphy sat in the front passenger seat, while Mo Shaowan and she sat in the back. "Look." Murphy just sat down, and before she put on her seatbelt, she impatiently reached into the corrugated box and took out a little kitten that looked like it was stained with ink. Mo Fei held the little kitten's belly with one hand and held its little butt with the other hand. The little kitten turned its head uneasily and opened its mouth to let out a cry. Meow. Her childish voice was so adorable. "A kitten!" Shi, who was in the back seat, cried out in surprise. The little girl covered her mouth, and her big eyes were filled with joy and disbelief. "A kitten!" Yang Yi's reaction was very different. He opened his mouth and asked. It seemed that Yang Yi was not surprised, only shocked. "Not just one." Murphy passed the kitten to her left hand and held it in front of her chest. Then, she took out another kitten from the corrugated box with her right hand. Okay, now there are 2 kittens meowing. Wait. Yang-yi clearly heard another meow. There are 3 in total. Mo Xiaowan proudly said, when I told Xiao AI, she had already told others that she would give some away, so there were only 3 left. But I have a good relationship with Xiao AI, so I can choose. Yang-yi felt like he was going to collapse. 1 kitten is not too much? She actually gave me 3 at once? Speaking of which, why did he get 3 of them? Wasn't 2 good enough? Don't they know that odd numbers can't be made symmetrical? I like it, I like it. Quick, Auntie Xiaowan, help me take a look. She shouted anxiously. She was tied to the child's seat and was eagerly looking forward to seeing the kitten. Mo Xiaowan carried the slightly larger kitten that Murphy had rescued before. She was delighted. The little girl looked at the delicate kitten and was still a little worried. On one hand, she was worried that she would accidentally hurt the kitten, and on the other hand, she was a little afraid that the kitten would bite her. The kitten was almost 2 months old and had all its baby teeth. However, she really liked it. She couldn't help but reach out her little hand and stroke the little cat's head. The cat's fur was soft and very comfortable. After the little kitten was touched, it narrowed its eyes and raised its head. This scared she so much that she quickly retracted her hand. It's okay, it won't bite you. It's very happy that you're touching it. Mo Xiaowan laughed. She then beamed with joy and played with the kitten. The kitten even rubbed its soft little ears against her palm. The little girl was very happy. You don't like cats? Murphy's happiness had passed. She keenly noticed that Yang-yi's emotions were not as excited as her daughter's. Yang-yi smiled awkwardly and said, It's not that I don't like cats. It's just that they shed their fur. He really couldn't say whether he liked or disliked cats. For pets like cats, which required emotional investment, Yang-yi had refused to get close to them in his previous life. He was afraid that they would be as troublesome as women. Dogs were the same, and they all shed their fur and often made themselves dirty. Shed their fur. Murphy understood. She remembered the conversation she had with Yang-yi when she was setting up the vase. She smiled until her eyes were like crescent moons. No, this kind of British shorthair shed very little fur. It would still shed. Besides, shedding fur is very normal. Murphy laughed. We women have such long hair, and we often shed some on the bed. But I don't think it's a big deal. The room is still very clean. She still had the nerve to say that. Yang-yi was speechless. When Murphy was at her house, she probably had a nanny to clean up. After she came to his house, wasn't it Yang-yi who cleaned up? Yang-yi had to clean the drain in the bathroom every day. Otherwise, it would be blocked by the black hair, and then the water would flood the Jinshan mountain. Not to mention the bedroom. Before Murphy came, Shi's long hair was often found in this and that corner. Yang-yi was a little suspicious that women were not made of water, but of hair. The so-called cleanliness that Murphy said she saw was the result of his hard work. However, there was no need to care about this. Yang-yi smiled reluctantly and said, It's okay. I actually don't care that much. Since you and she both like it, then let's keep it. Anyway, there was a shedding creature in the house that needed to be cleaned up, and there were 2 shedding creatures that also needed to be cleaned up. Since there were already 2, what was the harm in adding 3 more? Murphy giggled. She was quite satisfied with Yang-yi's tolerance, just like when they were setting up the vase. Although Yang-yi felt uncomfortable in his heart, he still magnanimously accommodated her. However, Murphy was not a capricious person. If Yang-yi gave in to her, Murphy wanted to return the favor. The kittens are still young. Let's keep them for a month or 2. When they grow up, we'll put them in the coffee shop and let them play by themselves. Murphy said softly to Yang-yi. Let me tell you, there are some coffee shops in Binhai that use cats as their theme, and they attract a lot of customers. Yang-yi, of course, knew what Murphy was talking about. Cat-themed coffee shops that specialized in attracting artistic youths who liked to play with cats. In his previous life, he had heard of many of them. There were even maids-themed coffee shops, let alone cat-themed ones. Since they were going to keep cats, the poop picker had to buy equipment for his masters. Under Mo Xiaojuan's directions, Yang Yi drove to the nearby pet street. Murphy's identity was special, so she couldn't get out of the car. She stayed in the car with Shi to play with the kittens. Yang Yi followed Mo Xiaojuan out of the car to shop. There are a lot of things to buy. Xiao AI gave us the food bowls, but there's only a week's worth of cat food, so we have to buy it. We also have to buy cat toilets, cat litter, and toilet mats for cats. You don't want cats to stink up the house, do you? These things need to be taught from a young age. Mo Xiaojuan walked in front, holding a piece of paper, and mumbling as she walked. Of course, she was not a qualified cat slave. These were the lessons that Xiao AI had prepared for her. We definitely need cat cages. If they don't listen to us in the future, we can lock them in as punishment. Mo Xiaojuan gloated. We also need cat beds, cat climbing frames, and their toys. Oh right, we have to buy paw sharpeners, cat nail clippers, combs. Yang Yi's temples swelled. Was it so troublesome to keep cats? He didn't know that Xiao AI had vaccinated the kittens before. Otherwise, there would be more troublesome things to do. Just as Yang Yi and Mo Xiaojuan were shopping in the pet shop, Mo Xiaojuan suddenly rolled her eyes. She reached out and pushed Yang Yi, urging him to go to a corner where they could talk in private. Brother-in-law, are you rich? Mo Xiaojuan looked at Yang Yi expectantly. Chapter 137. In fact, Yang Yi felt a little awkward being alone with Mo Xiaojuan. Mo Xiaojuan and his predecessor were like fire and water. Mo Xiaojuan even thought that Yang Yi was holding her cousin back. Moreover, Murphy and Yang Yi's relationship was problematic, so her views of Yang Yi had always been very extreme. Yang Yi also did not like this woman who was giving him a hard time as soon as he arrived in this world. However, Mo Xiaojuan was Murphy's cousin. She was half a sister-in-law, so Yang Yi couldn't treat her coldly. Now, Mo Xiaojuan, who had always been at odds with him, actually wanted to talk to him alone. Moreover, she looked like she wanted to discuss something important. This was too strange. Mo Xiaojuan saw that Yang Yi was hesitating and did not say anything. She became anxious. Brother-in-law, my sister told me that Soldier's Assault and Drawing Sword were both written by you. The two best-selling books definitely made you a lot of money. Yang Yi did not care about the money. He was hesitating about how to talk to Mo Xiaojuan and what tone to use. It's okay. When the settlement comes this month, I'll probably have an income of more than 7 million. Yang Yi decided to treat Mo Xiaojuan as Mo Xiaojuan and communicated with her normally. That's a lot. Mo Xiaojuan's eyes lit up. She said, That's enough. Brother-in-law, you just need to save up for 2 or 3 months. Was this girl's tone not deliberately alienating him like before? Yang Yi asked curiously, What are you going to do? It's not what I'm going to do. Mo Xiaojuan said excitedly. It's what my sister is going to do. What is Murphy going to do? Yang Yi was a little confused. If Murphy was going to do something, or if she was short of money, why didn't she tell him directly? Why did she have to pass the message through Mo Xiaojuan? Yang Yi quickly understood that this was actually a small misunderstanding. Mo Xiaojuan shook her head and sighed. Sigh, brother-in-law, you don't even know how my sister is treated by her current management company. Yang Yi really did not know much about Murphy's current situation. He could only tell that Murphy's situation was not good from the emails he sent to her by Mu Xiang. How could a singer collect the songs for an entire album without the company's help? With Mo Xiaojuan's exaggeration, Yang Yi understood the current situation where Murphy was being ostracized by her management company, and the boss's intention of pressuring Murphy to sign a more stringent contract. My sister is a stubborn person. She felt that Sister Ling treated her well in the past, so she didn't want their relationship to be strained. Mo Xiaojuan curled her lips and unhappily said, But she doesn't even know what kind of person Sister Ling is. That's right. When my sister had good results, she was the only big star in the company. Of course Sister Ling would protect her in the palm of her hand. Now that my sister's return album is selling poorly, her expression immediately changed. This person is very realistic. Zhan Muqian is young and beautiful, so she wants to push Zhan Muqian onto the stage and kick my sister away. My sister only remembers how others treated her well in the past. She can't see reality. Look at how the company is treating her now. How many performances and jobs have been arranged that my sister doesn't want to go? In the past, as long as my sister hesitated, they wouldn't even dare to mention it a second time. Also, wasn't there a scandal a while ago? It was all arranged by the company in private. Mo Xiaowan hatefully said. Yang Yi deeply frowned. If Mo Xiaowan didn't say it, he really wouldn't have known that Murphy was facing such a situation. He originally thought that the reason why Mo Fei flew around was just because of her job. But now it seems that she was being ordered around by the company like a cow. What do you want me to do? Although Yang Yi was very angry in his heart, he didn't show it. He took a deep breath and then asked in a deep voice. Mo Xiaowan snapped her fingers and said with a face full of excitement, "My idea is to let my sister jump out and set up her own studio. Although it's a bit difficult to wake up early, the most important thing is freedom. But my sister isn't willing. She's still hesitant and doesn't want to fall out with Sister Ling." Mo Xiaowan helplessly shrugged. "So I want brother-in-law to open the studio and set up the framework first. Then when the contract is about to expire and Sister Ling wants to renew the contract, we'll make it clear to her. Brother-in-law, you might not know, but it's useless no matter how much I say. My sister is very stubborn. But she cares about your words. As long as you persuade her and say that you want to open a husband and wife shop with my sister definitely won't refuse." Mo Xiaowan chuckled and patted Yang Yi's shoulder. "Of course, it can't be now. We'll have to wait until my sister releases this album." "Why wait? Why don't you tell Murphy first and let her terminate the contract with the company and then go to our new studio to release a new album?" Yang Yi asked, puzzled. "Doesn't it cost money to terminate the contract?" Mo Xiaowan rolled her eyes. "My sister was a singer back then. The termination fee was 40 million. Do you have 40 million? 40 million was the price of a popular singer 5 or 6 years ago. Because Murphy later retired, the contract hasn't been changed for the time being. If a popular singer didn't have a termination fee of 1 or 200 million in today's skyrocketing prices, she would definitely be a retard. She would be waiting for the industry's giants to covet her. Of course, Murphy's Waterloo was not worth 40 million according to the current prices. I can borrow it and spend the money to terminate the contract. I'll earn it when the money is gone. I don't want to stay in that company and ruin my mood," Yang Yi said indifferently. At worst, he could borrow 40 million from Fu Jun, or sell the film and television copyrights of Soldier Assault and Drawing Sword at a low price. Then, he would bring a few best-selling books over to make money. He had never heard of a money problem that could stump a reincarnated person. "Well, brother-in-law, even if you have 40 million, we don't need to spend it here. There's a reason why I don't want my sister to terminate the contract early," Mo Xiaowan explained. "First of all, my sister needs to use this album to prove herself. Mu Xiong songs are very well written. Even if it can't bring my sister back to the heights she had before she retired, I think it shouldn't be difficult to make my sister popular again. However, running a studio isn't something that can be done with money. If you're not an A-list celebrity, it's very difficult to compete with big agencies on your own without the support of popularity. Otherwise, why would many small-time celebrities have to endure the exploitation of agencies, while those who opened their own studios were mostly big stars who had been famous for a long time? Moreover, Tianmei now has the resources we urgently need. If we jump out and open our own studio now, how are we going to record? How are we going to shoot a music video? How are we going to sell the album? What about publicity?" Mo Xiaowan said, "We're a newly established studio. It's impossible for us to gather so many resources in a short time." Yang Yi had to admit that Mo Xiaojuan's words made sense. So in this year, we have to first set up the framework of the studio. I'll gradually invite the professionals I've known over the years to join us, or recruit and spend money to poach people. When my sister's contract ends and she joins brother-in-law's studio, the transition can be completed smoothly. Mo Xiaowan said confidently. Over the years, she hadn't been in the entertainment industry for nothing. She had a lot of resources in her hands, but it would take time to arrange them. Not to mention anything else, Mo Xiaowan had made up her mind to secretly poach people from her old company and persuade a group of capable and experienced friends like Xiao AI to join them. Of course. Mo Xiaowan snorted and said proudly, "The most important reason is, how can we run away like this? This album must be released in May, and we must get good results. When the time comes, they'll be surprised and regret it." You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.